started. And that's going to be a long night, but I think in fairness we should let the folks make their way into the room.
Let's not debate Samantha tonight. We're all just too tired. This is the short version.
Is this?
I'm going to leave a few extra copies here in case people. No, it's
gonna be squished.
It's here saved through.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember. I should have put the number, but. You already gave it to us.
I already have it.
We got it.
How's it going? It's going on. Ready to type? Yes, I am excited. Yeah, well, I'm sticking whoever's this with. I don't know. I know, yeah. Long one. Line out the door. Mark's just asked me to get them to set up. I can I do it. Oh, they're up on the table.
Sure. What, then I we're still local stuff like this. Okay, I'll get a look at it. But we'll definitely talk about it a week from tonight. Find on the website. It's on the website. Start at 7. Yeah, that's on the Fine, starting. They have those, Good evening, everyone. I'm the chair of Community Board 7. Welcome to our February full board meeting, the chairs we have. I apologize that we don't seem to have enough. This is obviously a record attendance for our... There are still some folks making their way down the stairs. The new security procedures obviously are appropriate, but they're new to us, so the timing of this has been off a little bit. That's why we're getting started just a little bit late. I understand that, we have a very hard deadline as to when we need to be out of this room, so I will do my very best in the session tonight. We will do our very best to be fair about that. I think that there's a way to do that gets the issue of business. And the first item of business is to approve the minutes from the January meeting. There is a correction to the January minutes. This is addressed to my board colleagues, that there was a Manhattan that didn't find its way into the minutes. She is preparing an addition, which I will supply to the secretaries for their approval, and subject to that.
I don't know whether I know that this is intentional, but I've noticed the last couple of minutes,
We'll fix that. That's an appropriate comment, and I appreciate it, and we'll fix that. The district manager, so I see a motion. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Hands down. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining?
3.
Thank you. And no one is precluded for cause. We also have minutes from the special meeting on December 17th relating to the revote on the 96th of that meeting, which were distributed. Do I hear a motion to approve? I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any comment?
Yeah.
No.
Wait.
All in favor? Please raise your hands now. Hands down. Anybody opposed? Seeing none. Anybody abstaining?
3.
Minutes are approved. For the benefit of my board colleagues, I'm going to abbreviate my chair's report. Matters. The one thing that affects the public as well as my board colleague, which is February 24th. Retired from the 20th precinct. Many of us feel this is a great loss to our community, although I'm sure we will be well served by whoever comes and taken this opportunity to have a much well-deserved vacation. But he sent a letter to our board that I'm going to call on our first vice chair, Andrew Ridgey, to read, please.
I don't, but I got it right here.
Give me 1 second. It starts with the italicized portion. Thank you.
Stand up.
I will.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Here is the statement. Having been with the department for over 2 decades and at the helm of the 20th precinct for 2 years now, I have decided to retire from the NYPD on February 13th. Although part of me would like to stay in the 20th precinct for as long as possible, I recently received a really great job offer from a wonderful organization. As much as I love being a cop, first and foremost, I am a husband and a father to 3 little boys ages 5, 3, and 1, and this opportunity is best for my family. The best thing I ever did in my 20-year police career was come to the Upper West Side. I love this community and remain honored to have been given the opportunity to lead the wonderful men and women of the 20th precinct and to serve the people of this fantastic neighborhood. According to Community Board 7 meetings and collaborating with the people in this room made me a more effective commanding officer. I learned more about the Upper West Side from listening to the people in this room than from any other entity. I am grateful to each and every one of you for your constant collaboration and continued support of the 20th precinct. Although there are a number of individuals I would like to publicly thank, in interest of time, I would like to single out 2 people who have been critical partners in addressing quality of life issues on the Upper West Side. Chair Emeritus Roberta Seamer and Chair Mark Dillon. For the last 2 years, Roberta and Mark have offered their support, guidance, and friendship to both myself and my staff. And on behalf of the 20th precinct, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to these remarkable community leaders. One thing I remain confident of is that the relationship between CB7 and the 20th precinct will remain strong after my departure. As many of you know, my executive officer, Captain Alexandra Sarubi, is a remarkable, talented police officer, or police executive, and she understands how valuable collaboration with this board is, and she is still here for you. I don't know who my successor is yet, but I will be sure to advise him or her that the people in this room have a collective wealth of knowledge about the Upper West Side that has infinite value to a police commander. I feel blessed to have been able to spend the last 2 years in what I consider the best neighborhood in all of New York City. I could not think of a better end to my police career. Thank you, and stay safe. Timothy Mallon.
Thank you, and vicarious thanks to Deputy Inspector Mallon. Okay, so that concludes the chair's report other than the business at hand for tonight. Obviously, we have an agenda that we need to get through. Obviously, there are a lot of folks standing. This is the best, we're going to do our very best, but there's a lot of business to take care of. By a show of hands, who's here for the transportation resolution concerning curbside usage? Okay. Even if half of you signed up to speak, we'd be here till the March full board meeting. We'll do our very best to hear as many of you as we can, and we're going to prioritize those. There has been a flyer that's been circulated in the community that has characterized our resolution, and what I would invite you all to do, especially since as I think I said in the procedures that we put on our website, we probably won't get to this issue before 7:45, is that on the reverse of, well, I'm sorry, let me try that again. The text of the resolution is available on Penny's desk over in the southwest corner of this room, and it's also on the screen here. I would invite you to read the text of the resolution. We'll talk more about that when the business session starts and we get to that piece of business. So I'd encourage you to review that. I would also remind you the key word in that resolution is study. The Transportation Committee co-chairs will discuss that, and I'm certain that there'll be testimony about what that word means to all of you, and we want to hear all of that. I should also mention that this resolution was brought before or a different version of this resolution was brought before our full board in December and was sent back to committee and was revised at committee after hearing a good 20 or so folks, maybe more, who came out to speak that evening. We understand that it's controversial, but I encourage everyone who wants to speak, and we're unfortunately going to have to limit it because we want to hear from as many of you as possible, therefore we can only hear each of you for a minute. Please speak to the resolution that's before you. Please keep in mind also that the study that is the subject of the resolution, if requested, would result in a report. There would be additional process here and with the Department of Transportation before any changes were made. So you can expect further meetings and further opportunities to speak. And I should hasten to add that one of the many things that the study could speak to, and something you may want to speak to about in your testimony, I'm not telling you what to say, is the possibility of residential permit parking that would give priority to local residents. The meeting procedures are on the reverse of the copy of the resolution that's available to you tonight. And I would invite you to take a look at those. Essentially, it's what I'm saying right now, but it's there for you to review. I would also remind folks that we're here to have a discussion about issues, not about people, and that we are all neighbors, every single one of us. My board colleagues are all volunteers. So it is appropriate to express the concerns that you have or the support that you have for any aspect of this matter of business or any other piece of business that's coming before you. And you'll hear tonight about an attempt to rescue a struggling middle school. You'll hear about issues having to do with other folks and folks just trying to make a living in our district and keep up some of those storefronts from becoming vacant. So I'm going to encourage everyone and insist that everyone speak in a way that's consistent with that sense of community. We'll have a respectful discussion. We need to be out of this room at a relatively early hour, so we're going to move this meeting along. We also need to leave a little time for my board colleagues to have colloquy and discussion, and so forth. So that's, and the one thing we're not gonna do is we're not gonna demonize anybody for any position. Anyway, so at the end of the allotted hour of time that we're gonna devote to public testimony, if there's folks who haven't had a chance to speak, who've signed up to speak, we'll certainly enter your names and into the record, and it'll look the same way in the minutes as if it were an opportunity to speak. That's the best we can do under the circumstances we have. I thank you all for coming. Community engagement is what a community board is all about, and so I invite you to listen and to participate as our meeting permits. That said, we're going to now move to the public session, and do I have speakers in the public session? Thank you. Excuse me one second. I need the, nope. Okay, so I'm just looking for somebody. Nope, okay. So the first person to speak will be Sarah Lebwall from New Yorkers for Safe Streets, to be followed by Mr. Cruz of the Civilian Community Complaint Board. I'm CCR.
Hello? Okay. There we go. Thank you. In light of the vandalism, crime, and outward disrespect shown toward our NYPD and community last week at our 72nd Street subway station, our group, New Yorkers for Safer Streets, also known as the Moms Group, are here to urge the board to make the issue of rising crime on the Upper West Side a priority. The people in this community are greatly affected by the outward security threats that we continue to face. No one wants to see KKK graffiti when we walk through the subway station, only to find the card scanner is clogged with ketchup. While there are a number of issues that we're here tonight to address, none should be more important than the safety of our residents. Our group now has over 3,000 members. We are gaining traction, and people are being made aware of the increasing crime statistics. What has been surprising to us when we go out in our meetings, in some cases, we're the ones educating many of our elected officials about crime statistics provided by the NYPD. Robberies are up 32%, burglaries are up 17%, transit crimes are up 25%. I know a lot of people here care about their cars. Grand larceny is up 62%. We continue to hear politicians downplay these issues and statistics. We're here to ask that the issue of rising crime and community safety become a formal agenda item, and that the board seeks to address and advocate on behalf of the thousands of concerned residents. To use the words of retiring Officer Mallon, crime in the last quarter was very unsettling. We would also like to take a moment to thank Officer Mallon for all of his hard work and wish him the best as he retires from the NYPD. Thank you.
Okay, Officer Cruz, and then I realize that I'm remiss that Lieutenant Levino has got another commitment to go, so we're going to call on him next. And then I think the commanding officer of the 2-4 is with us as well, so we'll take him next, and then we'll go back to our yellow sheets. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Community Board 7, for having us here. My name is Nikai Cruz. I'm with the Civilian Complaint Review Board of New York. This is a call for art from our young New Yorkers around the city, ages 10 to 24. We're asking young artists from all across New York City to submit work on the relationship between youth and the NYPD. This is a unique opportunity for the youth to have their art on display and create a dialogue in regards to police-community relations. One talented artist's work will make it onto our cover for our upcoming report in regards to young people's interaction with NYPD. Please submit your artwork by Monday, March 9th of this year. And we're having a board meeting at Bronx Community Board 12 on March 11th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lieutenant Medina, will you follow by, is the Deputy Inspector Gucci?
Hi everyone, my name is Lieutenant Levino. I'm the Special Operations Lieutenant in 2-0. I will not be taking over for Inspector Mallon, but he's been a good mentor for me. Hopefully someday I'll be able to fill his shoes.
No, a little closer. Closer to the mic. Closer to the mic.
During the 28-day period, which is January 6th to February 2nd in the 20th precinct, we're currently up 82 versus 51 in index crimes, which is actually a 61% increase. We're experiencing minor increases in robberies at 7 versus 5 last year, of which we have 2 arrests for. 3 versus 0 in felony assaults, which we have 1 arrest for, and 8 versus 7 in burglaries, in which we have 1 arrest for. Our most significant increase, in which is driving our crimes right now, is grand larceny, which we are up 64 versus 39, which is 64% increase. Grand larcenies are being driven mainly by fraud, of which 28 of our overall crimes are fraud. So that's really what's pushing our numbers forward this time. 8 of those are shoplifting grand larcenies as well, which are result in an increase in grand larcenies. While last year we were experiencing a large increase in youth robberies towards the end of the year, so far this year we are up 3 versus 1, which is a minor increase, but like I said, 2 of those were close to arrest. So we're not seeing the large numbers that we were at the end of last year, and I hope that we're trending in the right direction. We're doing everything we can to enforce those and prevent them as well. Burglaries, we are at 3 residential and 4 commercial for the year. 2 of those commercials were at the same location, Dead Poet, and we had 1 additional truck burglary. We're conducting an operation actually tonight to try and look into those commercial burglaries, so that's another thing that we haven't lost focus of with the crimes. As far as quality of life goes, our top 301 complaint locations for the period are Geyer's Bar, 286 Columbus. We have 20 calls for noise complaints there. Those are all anonymous callers, and we're engaging in dialogue with the management of the business store to see if we can slow those down. Additionally, we received 14 calls for noise with Tiki Cheek at 517 Amsterdam. We are in the process of setting up mediation between the management of that business as well as the complainant who's calling about that location. Almost all those calls stem from 1 singular caller. Additionally, we have 13 calls. Additionally, we have 13 calls for 2101 Broad Life for homeless condition, which I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of. We hit that location once or twice now with joint agency cleanups to try and keep the area clear. We've issued summonses and made arrests at the location whenever we observe quality of life violations, and it's a pressing issue. It's not something we lost sight of, and we're going to continue to enforce any any violations of law we see at that location. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commanding Officer of the 24th Precinct, Inspector Yuguchi, yes, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Naoki Yuguchi. I just took over for Inspector Lynch on the 24th of January. I just want to recognize Inspector Lynch and Inspector Mallon. They're both good friends of mine, and I was supposed to sit down with Inspector Mallon next week. I sat down with Inspector Lynch yesterday, and hope to get the insight that they've gathered over the last 2 years to better serve you during my time here. So I didn't, so I've only been in the spot for a week, so I don't have the detailed statistics that the Lieutenant just went over, but we are up in crime, 96 versus 79 in the same period compared to 2019. My biggest concerns are robberies and burglaries. We're up in robberies year to date, 19 versus 10, and burglaries 19 versus 10 as well. So that's just a quick snapshot of what's going on in the 2-4. I was most recently assigned to Central Park, so there's not as much going on in terms of 301 calls and the other issues, but I will definitely come with you with a lot more facts in future meetings. I just want to reiterate to everybody, for me, being a CEO of a command is an awesome opportunity, and to serve the community and try to make your lives a little bit better, whether it's a security issue or quality of life issue. It's a responsibility that I do not take lightly, so I look forward to working with all of you.
Back to our public session. I'm going to call on Zach Campbell from the Museum of Natural History Gilder Center, to be followed by Alex Barnett, Stephanie Burke, David Walker, and Angela Rainier from PS 87.
Excellent, thank you. Zach Campbell from the Museum of Natural History, the liaison for the Gilder Center project. I'll be very brief. Last month I noted that excavation and foundation work for the project was progressing. As of the end of January, our contractors are approximately 90% complete with the soil removal phase of work. Work is also underway to install other foundation elements and the last of the supports of excavation is being completed. The number of construction vehicles accessing the site is anticipated to remain the same, about 10 to 20 per day for the February to March period, and some of those will be concrete trucks for the foundation piles, footings, and other elements. Machinery on site includes drill rigs, excavators, demo hammers, front-end loaders, and other various hand tools. Additionally, just one last point, I noted last month that we had a brief crane operation to perform lifts for a museum-wide chiller replacement project. This operation was successfully completed between January 13th and 15th. If you haven't already, please sign up for our newsletters, go to amnh.org, navigate to the Gilder Center link, and you'll find a way to sign up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Next is our friends from PS87, to be followed by Win Armstrong.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Burke. I'm a parent from PS87, and we come here today because on January 21st, we were made aware that there is a large construction project which will be commencing in March at PS87. This construction project will affect the entire community. It is going to be 2.5 years. It concerns dramatic amounts of asbestos remediation and abatement. We are concerned especially because we understand that some of this has been done interiorly inside our school already. We, the parents, have requested more than once and continuously and asked this board to help us to gain all of the information and the transparency required from the school's construction authority. To date, we have not seen any permitting. We have not seen the HERA abatement plan, which is required by federal law. We have not seen any of the reoccupancy letters. We have not seen any of the air testing. So I reiterate to you that at this point we understand that there have been 2 separate projects that have been done between the December break, Martin Luther King weekend, and indeed we are now coming upon the February break where we were told more asbestos abatement will be being done, and we have not seen a single document. We are terribly concerned. We tell you that this will affect our entire community as they will be replacing the roof on PS87, which means on 78th Street, all of our neighbors will be put in the situation that we are put as these toxins are put in the air. We certainly hope you will help us make sure this is done in the safest and most transparent way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. At the January 21st meeting, Community Board President 7 was present at that meeting. We are aware that there's a second meeting that's being scheduled. We'll be there at that one too. And the chairs of the Youth and Education and Libraries Committee have been made aware of this as well, so we'll be on top of it. Thank you. We have Win Armstrong. Is Win here? Oh, okay, great. Followed by Ira Gershenhorn, followed by Constance Clark.
Neighborhood History Group. We started with one talk, and the group has just grown, and the history has grown. And I've come also to invite you to the 20th anniversary talk, February 13th, which is on 5 generations of Seneca Village, which Cal Jones, the former Manhattan Borough historian, has put together very proudly. And the notices are in the back. We've got a lot to do tonight, so I'll celebrate with you another time.
Ira, I think, is next. Ira Gershenhorn's next, followed by Constance Clark, followed by Barbara Litt.
Hello, my name is Ira Gershenhorn. This is to be short. All I'm doing is asking for Riverside Drive to be narrowed to 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction, just as it is pretty much everywhere else except between, say, I don't know, like 98th Street and 145th. It's always one lane each way. In between those two blocks, it's two lanes. I have no idea why.
Thank you, Ira. Constance Clark, followed by Barbara Litt, followed by Ronnie Basson. And I have these as well. Okay.
Hi. As many of you are aware, the developers at 91st and Broadway just got approval to put up a 19-story building that will cantilever out over the Equinox Sports Building. I think many of you are also aware that the lead developer at the site, Adam America, is a schlock developer. And they've got a history of poor design, construction problems, and lawsuits. And my personal feeling is that if this building goes up, it's not only going to be unsightly, there's a question whether it will be safe. Cantilevers have to be built properly or a building can collapse. And these guys do not build properly. What some of you may not know is that the project's being financed by entities related to Michael Dell of Dell Computers. I'm here to ask the community board to join with concerned neighbors, I know some of them are here, with local officials, with organizations like CESD and Landmark West, and reach out to Michael Dell and ask him to stop this. What's particularly concerning is that Michael Dell's entities are also planning to redevelop the Hyatt Hotel site next to Grand Central. That's one of the most prominent sites in all of New York City, and they're going to need city approval to do it. But you know, if they're putting up garbage on the Upper West Side, what on earth are they going to do at Grand Central? And you know, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was Barbara Litt. I have Ronnie Basson to be followed. Was that Miss Clark? I'm sorry, you're Miss Clark.
I am Barbara Litt.
Oh, you're Barbara Litt.
That's not my check.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I had to reverse. So Ms. Litt, here you go.
All right. Well, I represent the residents, I think, of the Upper West Side, particularly 215 West 91st Street. There we go. We're right behind me. And our concerns are exactly what Connie Clark already expressed. I'm going to add a little bit to that. We really would like you to put pressure on Michael Dowell. I wonder if he's even seen the new plans, if he's aware that these are not the original plans, which were for one building, and now that they've been able to buy the air rights, which I understand is perfectly legal. Mr. Dillon was good enough to answer my concerns in an email. I thank him for it. But we are concerned that now that they're able to do this, and the building is going to be 15 stories and loft over Broadway and over Equinox, we would like to know if Mr. Dell is really aware of those changes, as well as who he's dealing with, and how good is this construction company, and are they really up to the task, or should they be taken to task? We're also concerned this is going to be it's going to be a longer, more extensive project than was originally proposed. And we are concerned about the environmental impact of that building. Already, they are working until 7:30 at night. I don't know if there's any law that says when they have to stop, but they haven't. The passageway for pedestrians is not very wide. People take their umbrellas today and they have to put them down to walk through the passageway. It's a narrow walkway, and we are concerned about the effect of this on the local businesses. Let's say Sweet Greens has an outside market, Barzini's has an outside market. We've got a kiosk on the corner, and of course you've got a lot of people on the Upper West Side. It's already, we know it's a crowded area. We don't want to make this worse. So we would appreciate it, thank you, if you would look into the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, our lady chair. One of our lady chairs is here. The thing that, as far as we know, as of this time, there is no discretionary approval sought for this site the way that there is for the, there is for the Grand Central site that you mentioned. I have Ronnie Basson to be followed by Hazen Pyler, is it? Or forgive my pronunciation. Followed by Peter Arnson. Please go ahead.
Hi. I'm Ron Bassan. I live on the west side. Close to me. I work for the New York City Census 2020 organization. We need your help. That's why I'm here. We are hearing a lot about census, specifically the money that we were cheated out of 10 years ago that we need, the seats in Congress that may be up and certainly in jeopardy, and the problems that we have in our neighborhoods that can only be addressed by a full count. So we're trying to get out as many people as possible. We need volunteers for this. It's not asking a lot of time or a lot of effort. A couple of hours throughout the period would be more than enough. We need people for canvassing, for texting, for phone banking, and for helping us to identify cohorts that we may not be aware of. We've done an assessment of this area. We find that senior citizens, disabled people, new immigrants are all people that we must make sure are counted this time. So this will be in the back. Take it, fill it out, send it in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hazen Kyler, followed by Peter Arnson, followed by, is it Glenn Grasso? Yeah, thanks.
Hello, for us tonight. My name is Hazen Kyler, and I am the artistic director of a theater, film, art, and music company called the Greenhouse Ensemble, and we work primarily on the Upper West Side. What we're developing right now is a Upper West Side theater and arts district. So we're compiling a lot of different churches and synagogues, partnering with a lot of different organizations, including Goddard Riverside, in order to create a district for the best independent art and theater right here on the Upper West Side. Right now, we're looking for different organizations that are interested in partnering with us, as well as any other individuals who want to help us create the infrastructure that's necessary to build this into a reality. So thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. I think Glenn Grasso is next. Is that, no, Peter Arnson, then followed by Glenn Grasso. Thanks. And then I have Tag signed up. But Tag, you want to speak in the business section, right? Yes? I can't. Yes, okay, thank you.
Good evening. Peter Arnson with the Columbus Amsterdam Bid. Wanted to call attention to a number of events that are happening in February. There is a flyer in the back with those in it. There's also a restaurant guide to restaurants north of 96th Street, which are typically small family-owned restaurants. I wanted to follow up on Wynn's comments on the Bloomingdale Neighborhood History Group. They have not only the one for the 13th, that's next Thursday, but on the 25th there will be a talk on liberal Catholicism in a archdiocese that is not supportive of that, focusing on a number of churches in our neighborhood. That'll be on the 25th, 6:30. Both are free. There is also a walk. Part of this is that we do both walks and talks. So on Sunday, the 16th at 1 o'clock, Jim Mackin will be giving a walking tour of the neighborhood north of 96th Street. And that happens on a monthly basis. The other thing that I'll call attention to that is in the events calendar is a variety of music that is happening throughout the upper area that we are in, Bloomingdale. That includes a Mardi Gras band that will be progressing from 96th Street north to 106th Street. So, have a good evening.
Thank you. And I believe Mr. Grasso is next.
First of all, I'm going to say something that will make every single person in this room very happy. I was on the parking list. You can just take my slip out and enter it into the record. What I would like to do tonight is speak to the comments that the chair made at the very beginning of the meeting. I used to sit on a public board. Smaller town, same issues. As it happened, I was the chairman of the Transportation Commission. And what I can say is when not all the stakeholders are invited into the room, there's a lot of anger. And it's that anger I'd like to speak to. Every member of this voluntary board is a human being. I'd like to remind all my friends standing behind me that decorum and civility really rule the day. If for no other reason, then people won't listen to you if you get too hot-headed. And I saw a lot of that at the last meeting, I saw a lot of that on television. Doesn't matter how good your point is, if your kid's being assaulted in school and you can't keep your head about it, the superintendent's gonna walk out of the room. So I encourage everybody in here on both sides of the issue to keep their heads about this. That means avoiding ad hominem attacks. And for those of us that aren't Latin scholars, don't really talk about whether you're liberal or conservative, whether you love de Blasio or hate him, whether you love Helen Rosenthal or don't, whether Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, you're pro or con impeachment. None of that really is the point. The point is to stick to the topic at hand. Talk about the rest of the stuff out in the hall. Because really you run the risk, again, to everybody, of being written off, even by people who disagree with you. And this goes to the audience too, not just the speakers. This isn't the WWE. Hooting and hollering, insulting people, board members, calling people out, yelling, screaming, just doesn't help your cause, whether it's good or not. If you must respond, clap or choose not to clap. Thank you.
He and I have never met. Did I miss one?
One more.
I'm sorry.
Live.
Is that Bonnie Eisler? Eisler? Okay. I'm stalling for time so you can get up here to the mic. And then we're going to go to our elected officials' reports.
I live at 25 Central Park West, and first I want to thank this board for approving the no standing zones in front of CPW and on 62nd Street. As you can see, I'm handicapped. Usually I have my dog with me, but he was in the hospital this week. What I want to say is I so appreciate it. We worked really hard to get that put through, and in front of our building there's only one lane now because of what happened with the bike lanes. But since we approved, you guys approved for us the no standing zone, it has been chock-a-block with police officers parking there every single day. They park in front of our entrance, they park everywhere. There's something that the DOT put across the street, looks like a little patio, they're parking horizontally. We did not work hard to get that approved to make it police parking. Now, I have a lot of respect for the police, I think they do a wonderful job, but this is a public safety issue. Emergency vehicles can't get through because there's one lane. People have to get dropped off, traffic is blocked up and down Central Park West. I have made phone calls to the police captain, I have spoken to a lot of people, and now I'm here to ask for your help. Because this is not what you had in mind, this is not what any of us had in mind, and something's got to be done. We've created a public safety issue. Either they got to get rid of the parking altogether on the other side of Central Park West. I don't want to talk about that, I know it's another issue. But something has to be done because we did it for safety. I have to be able to exit my car with my dog. There's no place, I can't even get out. The DOT told me that patio sort of area was for me to exit when going northbound. But now they're parked horizontally. It's like this was made just to make more parking for the police. And like I said, I'm not anti-police. I just want to be safe. I want my neighbors to be safe. And that's it. Thank you.
So if I may, here's my card. Please email me tomorrow. I'm going to bet everyone in the room a good beer that it is not the men and women in blue who are in this room that are taking those spots. I bet you it's the transportation folks whose command is actually right there at Columbus Circle, which is actually outside of our district and precinct, but we have been in contact with them because they also seem to park as well or leave their vehicles in bike lanes at times as well. So this is an ongoing issue. We will keep on top of it, and please give our regards to Bear. That's the dog, right?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Mark, did you mention this will be discussed at the next week's transportation committee?
And it will be discussed at next week's transportation committee, according to our chairs who are nodding their heads. Thank you very much for that. So, elected official reports. The first one I'm going to call on is Suad Hassan from Senator Jose Serrano Jr.'s office, who has very kindly ceded her time. So we thank her for the consideration of our short agenda, or long agenda, and short comments tonight. Suad, where are you? There you are. If anybody has concerns for Senator Serrano, offline with her right there. Thank you so much. Be followed by Hannah, it's Weissman, isn't it? Wienerman, there it is. I just know it's Hannah, from Representative Gerald Nadler's office, to be followed by Michael Stinson from Controller Scott Stringer's office, excuse me.
Hi everyone. So I'm not going to talk about impeachment. If you want to know more information about impeachment, what Congressman Nather said about it, there's some newsletters in the back. I just want to flag a few upcoming things down in DC because amid all this, we are still trying to do legislation. So the ERA, so you basically have to get 38 states to ratify the ERA to make the change to the Constitution. Virginia just became the 30th state in October, I believe, or November. Okay. In November, the House Judiciary Committee passed out a bill that would allow for the deadline to pass the ERA to be extended. That will be brought to the floor vote hopefully in the next few weeks. Next week, Chairman Nather will lead the markup on the No Ban Act, which is to ensure that we don't have the Muslim ban and to allow folks enter the country for, not discriminating against religion. The last thing I'm going to want to kind of flag for you is after the terrible helicopter crash last Sunday, Congressman Nather just wanted to reiterate the danger that is caused by non-essential helicopter flights and to bring attention to the Improving Helicopter Safety Act that Congressman Nather co-sponsored with Congresswoman Maloney and Congresswoman Velasquez. That has been in committee, and hopefully we can get some momentum to get a committee pass it and make sure that non-essential flights are banned. Thank you.
Hannah, before you go, may I have, by a show of hands, a sense of the board resolution to support and send our best wishes to Congressman Nather's wife, who I understand is suffering and having treatments this week. So may I have a show of hands to support? It is so adopted by the Community Board 7. Please send him and her our very best wishes.
Thank you. We're really moved by that. Thank you.
So we have Michael Stinson to be followed by my error. The Manhattan Borough President's office is supposed to go first, and I never remembered to do that, so my bad. Mike, go ahead, and then it'll be you.
Hi, everybody. Mike Stinson from Controller Scott Stringer's office. Thank you for allowing that to happen, because my son's turning 1 month today, so we're celebrating with some cupcakes that he can't eat. But I just want to announce 3 quick things. We have our summer internship program coming up again in June. The application period is now open. We do pay our interns, so we'd love to have as many people there applying as possible. The period is open until March 6th. And we have an event coming up next Wednesday in Brooklyn. It's our annual Trailblazers event celebrating African American history. It's going to be Wednesday, February 12th. Doors open at 6 p.m. at Long Island University Brooklyn campus. And thirdly, we just announced our workshops for MWB University this year. The first one is coming up February 27th from 9:30 to 12. It's at the Municipal Building, 1 Center Street. The topic is Forecast of New York City Contract Opportunities, and you can learn how the city's budget can help you identify opportunities through the MWB purchase method and more. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. April Adams from Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer's office, to be followed by Jacob Priley from Senator Brad Wellman's office.
Good evening, y'all. So I know a lot of y'all are here tonight about the Transportation Committee item. I just wanted to remind everyone that the Borough President did publish a survey about parking permit plans. It is in the back if anyone would like to grab an issue. Also, I did notice that you're also going to be talking about the M11 bus service tonight. Our office has written, we have corresponded with the MTA regarding that bus route. They did respond to us and say that they will be looking at it during the Manhattan bus network redesign, but we want to do something more immediate, so we'll be following up with y'all on that. 2 events that we have coming up. We have our Black History celebration next Wednesday, February 12th. That's going to be from 6 to 9 p.m. at Mist Harlem, right up here on 116th Street. And we have more information regarding that event on a flyer in the back. And also, we are going to have a Women's History Month open house on March 1st. And we're partnering with the Monumental Women and the Department of Records. So that's going to be super fun, and we're going to do that down at 1 Center Street. More information is in our February update. And lastly, I just want to remind everyone that community board applications are due next Friday, Valentine's Day, February 14th. So please, if you haven't reapplied yet, Richard, I think you have not reapplied. I think you called me. And then, of course, anyone in the audience who is interested in applying, please do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, April. And that application is open to the public as well, so if you like or don't like what you see tonight, fill in an application and join us. Jacob Priley from Senator Brad Whaleman's office, to be followed by Julian Delaporte from, Council Member Helen Rosenthal's office.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob with State Senator Brad Hoylman's office. I will be very brief. The Senator is up in Albany, a busy legislative session thus far. We have some updates on legislation that we support on our board report out in the back. And one event that I would like to plug is a New York State budget forum being hosted by the New York State Senate Manhattan delegation on Saturday, February 29th from 2 to 5 on 103rd Street. We'll be discussing budget priorities for this legislative session, which will be completed by April 1st. So we want to hear from community members on what we should be focusing on, and I'll be hanging around if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Next up is, what did I forget? Julian. It's Julian Delaporte from, there you are, from Councilmember Helen Rosenthal's office, to be followed by Erica Overton from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office.
Good evening, everyone. I promise to be brief as possible. I just wanted to highlight 2 events coming up from our office that are available to the public. This Wednesday, tomorrow night, we're going to have a pro bono legal clinic at Carter Riverside Bernie Wall Center at 6:30. This will be your chance to speak to pro bono lawyers regarding your housing issues. I also wanted to bring up that we'll be having a CUNY Citizenship Now event on February 22nd, where you receive help for any citizenship questions you have regarding your application. Thank you so much, and as a reminder, all the flyers are back there, and I will be here until you're all done speaking this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Erica Overton from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office, to be followed by Grease from Assemblymember Dick Gottfried's office.
Hi everyone, Erica, Linda Rosenthal's office. 3 updates. First, on March 1st, the Assembly member is having a reusable bag event, and you've already swear. So March 1st, it goes into effect. Can't use plastic bags anymore. We're giving out reusable bags. Second, in Albany, the Assembly member just introduced legislation that would piggyback off her Child Victims Act legislation that she proposed that became law last session. So they extended the civil and criminal statutes for anyone who has abused a child. And so this year, there was a 1-year look-back period in that bill. And so anybody over a certain age who had been abused as a child was allowed to come back and for 1 year file a claim. There has been an outpouring of claims. And so the Assembly member and Senator Brad Hoylman have introduced legislation to extend that 1-year look-back period by another year. So it would go from August 2020 to August 2021. Second, the Assembly member will be working with CB7, hopefully, and CB4 on the M11. So we have done extensive work on the M104, and we rode the bus with all of you and Andy Byford. And so we are taking on the M11 because it lost 900,000 riders in the past 8 years or so, about 90,000 riders in 2018 alone. And so there are many issues plaguing that route, and so we're ready to work with you guys, since it's on your agenda today, to start addressing those issues with the MTA and DOT. That's it.
Thank you. And if we send Assemblymember Dick Gottfried's office to that cleanup.
Thank you. Just want to talk about the Board of Standard and Appeals decision last Tuesday. In a very unusual 2-2 tie vote, the BSA failed to approve the appeal that was seeking to overturn the Department of Buildings' approval of the XDEL Development's application to build a 775-foot high building at 50 West 66th Street, which will allow the DOB approval of the project to stand. Assemblymember Godfrey is joining with all the other elected officials in the Upper West Side to continue to fight this project along with community members and Landmark West. They will be calling on DOB to justify its granting of the permit, including the mechanical deduction for 4 full floors for the oversized mechanical void. I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the reports of elected officials. We'll now enter our business session. I'm going to advise the chairs of the Youth Education and Libraries Committee that the principal of Lafayette Academy is on his way to join us for that resolution. So with your indulgence, I'll take ECI first, so that perhaps we can hear from the principal. Does that work? Very good. So, VCI, here we go. Principal's here.
Very, very brief. I just want to do one shout out to our extraordinary city council member, Helen Rosenthal's office, who have really helped out so much with help DCI out. So thank you, Julian Delaporta and Marissa Mack, Chief of Staff. So next, let's go right into it. Nothing controversial. The first one we will look at is number 225 Columbus Avenue, a beloved restaurant, Bistro Cassis. The owner of the restaurant had surgery. He missed the deadline to reapply for his liquor license. So he came to us. He has new partners, but it's the same operator and it's the same beloved Bistro Cassis. Do I hear a second? Be approved.
Second. Call the question. Call the question.
All those in
Call the
favor?
question?
Yeah.
Oh. Did I say beloved? Okay.
Audrey?
Okay, why am I,
35, 36, 37. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, 37, 0, 0.
Okay, and so then the next, number 3 comprises unenclosed sidewalk cafe renewals. None of the footprints changed. They are all good operators, and we unanimously approve them. So, call the question?
Yep.
Okay. Those in favor? Meg? Oh, sorry. $39. Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay. 39, 0, 0, 0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There was one more item of minutes that I'd like to take care of right now because it's on your voting sheet. We don't usually approve minutes of committees, but it's on your voting sheet, so let's do it. These are the minutes of the special ULIP hearing on December 17th that immediately preceded the special meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve? I hear it moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Hands down. Anybody opposed or abstaining?
Abstaining? 1, 2, 3.
And ineligible. Okay. I'm afraid we're going to have to go because otherwise it'll be hours till we get to the next thing. So without further ado, we have the Youth Education and Libraries Committee.
Thank you. So I'm happy to have a very positive story to begin our meeting with, and I'm going to sort of jump in. It's a resolution on the expansion of Lafayette Academy. And just a background, I think it's just a good example of what I think is the best way to improve schools is when you organically work with the educators, the parents, and the community to work to improve the schools. So I know there's been a lot of conversations out there around the DOE, but I think from my perspective, this was a great story, so I'm glad to bring it to everyone. I'm going to read the resolution. It's a little lengthy, unfortunately, but I think it's good in the sense of it's got the beginning sort of tells the background, the second talks a little bit about what they're going to be doing, and the third part talks about what we're looking for, and I may take the liberty to skip a little bit for time's sake. Lafayette Academy is a public middle school located in the Joan of Arc building at 154 West 93rd Street, currently serving students in grades 6 to 8. Lafayette Academy offers a French-English dual language curriculum that employs a dual immersion model with students learning language skills in both languages, eventually learn academic subjects as well. Fluency in the multiple languages is an important skill in the world and the economy of the future. Research has shown that students who pursue dual language immersion studies often have higher graduation rates, achieve higher wages, and social capital going forward Embedded in this dual language immersion approach is the fundamental respect for appreciation of all cultures, puts these to a greater respect and a greater facility with the world around us. Lafayette seeks to expand to a 6 to 12, so move to a high school, and to become certified to offer an IB diploma or an international baccalaureate. The IB approach combines in-depth academic rigor and so-called soft skills such as perseverance, discriminant, empathy, and analysis, excuse me, all of which have been identified as the essential executive functions for future success. Skipping a little forward, expansions of Lafayette Academy to a 6 to 12 would create another District 3 high school that would give preference to continued District 3 middle school students. I think anybody who's going through a high school process and has a 13-year-old like myself would understand how important that is. So, to pursue the expansion of the school to 6 to 12, offering to become certified in IB, Lafayette Academy requires new or additional space not currently available in the Joan of Arc building and funding to offset the cost of the training, curriculum development, and related expenses to prepare for and satisfy the IB requirements. So, therefore, it is resolved that Community Board 7, Manhattan, A, supports the introduction of the French-English dual language program at Lafayette. B, supports the efforts of the administration, faculty, and parents to expand to serve grades 6 to 12 and to be certified to offer an international baccalaureate diploma, and calls on the DOE and elected officials to provide the classroom space and funding necessary to achieve the expansion of the IB certificate sought to by Lafayette Academy. And the committee voted, it was 8 to 0 to 0 to 1, which I don't remember what the fourth reason was, Mark will elaborate, but it was universally supported. So we do have someone from the school to give us a little bit of background. If you want to come up and speak a little bit about it.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Yep.
So, thank you very much for your support. Thank you for helping us with this resolution, supporting our community at Lafayette Academy. My name is Virgil Devote. I'm a parent of a 7th grader. I'm here because Mr. Zager, the principal, is on his way. He just walked in, so.
The principal of Lafayette Academy.
I am sorry I'm late. I just came from New Jersey. My 4-year-old had the flu. I had to wait for childcare and came straight here. Oh no, it's my pleasure. So my name is Ryan Zager. I'm the principal of Lafayette Academy. It is a dual language school, French school on the Upper West Side on 93rd between Columbus and Amsterdam. I have to catch my breath. We have done something amazing at Lafayette Academy. Something that I want to say has been done before, but maybe not to the extent. We created a dual language program that completely turned around the school. What was a failing school is now one of the more successful schools in District 3, and primarily because of the dual language program that we have. It is a dual language French program. Over 50% of our kids read, write, and speak fluently in French, and there's also a monolingual program, so a program that doesn't just speak French. And what is created, the cultural factors that it has put together, what it has actually manifested is something that's been amazing. And so what we're looking for right now is to create a multilingual dual language IB program. I have to think that the New York City Department of Education, when creating dual language programs, created programs for the purpose of giving our kids an opportunity to learn a new language in elementary school, become proficient in this language, and then eventually continue that program in middle school. Yet what you'll see is that 90% of dual language programs in the DOE right now is currently elementary school. I have to think that the ultimate goal is a pathway to get our kids from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade in a dual language program to open up amazing opportunities for them. I'm here speaking obviously for my kids that want to go to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade,
but also for programs in District 3 that also have dual language programs that are currently teaching kids, not necessarily native language speakers. We have an Italian dual language program in Harlem that doesn't have an abundance of Italian native speakers, but is teaching kids, Title I students, kids from the neighborhood, anybody that wants to learn Italian, starting from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. They have no place to go after this. They have no place to go, as well as the Russian dual language program also. That's not necessarily filled with its capacity with Russian native language speakers. Even my students themselves came from PSA before, not all of which are coming from parents that speak French or coming from homes where French is spoken, but just wanted to learn the language, wanted to be part of the culture. And so they built this proficiency, and now I'm able to take them to the next level. In my school, we're not learning, it's not a French 101 class. Our kids are learning social studies in French. They're learning literature, language arts in French. They're learning science in French. What this is going to be able to do, if we can bring together the 4 major dual language programs in District 3, is open up a world of jobs that might have only been offered at this time to people that have funding to go to schools like UNIS, the United Nations International School, where it costs $40,000 to $50,000 a year in tuition, so that they can learn in their content areas how to speak proficiently and intelligently in certain subjects or history. So we're going to open up an entire pathway for kids, Title I kids that maybe never thought that a language or a second language was going to take them to the next place. We're going to open up a pathway for them now to get jobs that were only offered to if individuals spoke French, if they're going to be doing international work in marketing or advertising. That was only available to the kids who could benefit from going to UNIS and getting that education, or whose parents spoke French and kept speaking with them at home. We're opening this world up to kids that didn't think that international jobs because of the second language was even possible. I have to think that the Department of Education did this, opening up these dual language programs for this point, that it wasn't just to stop at an elementary school. There are 2 or 3 French dual language middle schools in all 5 boroughs. There's 1 French dual language high school, and just speaking for French, in Brooklyn. And so either you have to travel an hour and a half to get that other education if they accept you into that high school, if they don't give priority to their district. And so we need to offer this opportunity to everybody. It only makes sense that this was the original pathway for our kids to be given the chance of another education.
Thank you, Brian.
Sorry.
I'll give you a couple extra minutes to make sure you got 6 minutes.
I paid a toll right now. I paid a toll.
I got a couple of winces, but we gave it to you. So we're going to have some questions to go around, and maybe if you want to stand up there, there may be some questions, but some of our committee members. Move left to right. I know someone wants to get a mic.
Yes, sir.
We don't have one, so let's see if I can, I'll try to project.
They're getting you a mic.
Okay.
It's an amazing sounding program.
Yes.
And especially as we continue to talk about multiculturalism. So you're not just talking about French nationals, we're talking about what we used to call it 9th generation in metropolitan France. So you have a lot of Africans who are Cameroon that are speaking.
That makes up a good portion of my program.
And certainly the Haitian community is substantially on the west side. The parish that I belong to, which is Holy Name, has a very strong French-speaking community. Now, I'm familiar with the baccalaureate in my BA in history.
Yes.
But you're using this international baccalaureate, which sounds very impressive. Now, I wonder if there's a comparability that you can define for us between what I know as a BA, my 4 years of college, and this powerful high school program, which is using the term baccalaureate.
Yeah.
And perhaps you should tell us, maybe I should know what the term baccalaureate means, what the word means.
So the curriculum itself is started in, I believe it was Geneva was the first school, I think UNIS was the second school. It's a twofold answer, and I want to say that most of my kids, I have 2 feeder schools. One is NIFAX, the New York French American Charter School, and one is PSA4. I do have a large number of kids from Haiti and West Africa that are in my school as well that are French speaking. There's 2 things. Number one, in international baccalaureate, it provides students the opportunity. It's a world-known curriculum, so if our students wanted to study at the University of Paris, all of a sudden now, what might have been seen as not having the credentials based on, who knows what high schools can produce, this is something that is sponsored by all countries, or a lot of countries that are buy into the IB program. So I could walk into a foreign university and say, these are my credentials. You might not, they may not know what a Regents diploma is, but they know the rigor that comes with an IB program. And so even having one of my teachers who is working with me on this project, who graduated at Stanford, contacted one of the people at admissions at Stanford and says, so there's a lot of people that are getting this IB curriculum and IB diploma that aren't going for an international university. They just think the fact that this is a more rigorous curriculum, and colleges actually look more favorably on a specific rigorous level, so it's not so much I also have a BA in history, and so it's not so much like this is a college degree, but just kind of more of a well-known curriculum that, if wanted to, can be used to travel to international schools, but it's also recognized by national colleges as a rigorous curriculum.
Let's take one more if we can, and then go ahead.
Steve, I see there's not enough space in the Joan of Arc building for this. I'd be ashamed.
Well, that's part of the
Yes, ma'am.
resolution is to know when they have
Where else are you
space.
looking for space nearby?
That's part of what we're coming to ask and help assistance for. We're working with individuals from the Department of Education. I'm in communication with my superintendent. We're thinking, we're reaching out to the CEC.
We hate to lose you.
I would hate to be lost, and I don't want to be
All
lost.
the work that you've done.
I think that, again, so this is going to be something that's unlike any school in New York City has ever had. But in my opinion, what's available to the private sector should be available to the public sector as well. And so, we have to embark on this trip and on this journey, and it's multi-layered, finding space, funding sources, IVs, but there shouldn't be anything that denies students from going from K to 12, learning another language, being, one of the people that we reference says that monolingualism is the illiteracy of the 21st century. And I couldn't agree more, although that would make me partially illiterate, but I think there needs to be a pathway for kids and for Title I kids and for public school children.
Thank you. I see two more hands. If we could do this quick, because we're at the witching hour.
Just want to know what the plans for the school is and strategies to address putting middle schoolers and high schoolers together. We're talking about different developmental ages with different focuses. It's something that actually there's a ton of research out there that should not be happening.
Yeah.
So what are the strategies that the school is thinking about to ensure that all children are safe in their school?
Well, I think school culture is probably one of the most important things, as you said. And when it comes to Lafayette Academy, we have that. I feel, I would push for you to look up some of our statistics already. One of the things that the parents boast about is the school culture. We're very involved with the children. There's no negative information. Actually, we have a 93% positive rating in the learning environment survey. So, when putting two things, I would want to think that many of our kids will stay, but even to the ones that come, the educational environment, that's the number one thing. This is all great if you have multilingual, but it doesn't work unless there is a blending of cultures between the middle school and the high school, I think also the IB curriculum itself really lends to it, because there's this MYQ, this middle years program, so the IB is actually only in 11th and 12th grade. There's an MYP which starts in 6th, so that continuation from 6th all the way up to 10th grade already exists, so it kind of will help erase those, am I in high school, am I in middle school, but what year am I at in the IB program, and what is my goal, and what am I looking to do?
You have one more, and real quickly, and then
Okay, really quick. I'm very sympathetic to your educational goals. My uncle started in a blacksmith shop in Eastern Europe at coal mines in Pennsylvania, ended up as a professor of French at Columbia University. It's a great path. But I'm also a parent of 3 children in this school district, and this community board has had a long history in the last 10 years of creating several schools from the ground up, and some new buildings, some taking over buildings, reassigning schools to many other buildings. So my big concern is finding 6 classrooms to expand your school, or maybe 8 classrooms, is a tough sell within the bounds of this community board. A larger expansion is probably going to be something you really need to bring to other community boards, because this community school district encompasses several other community boards. So if we're going to start to look at moving pieces around, I think we've really got to reach out to the other community boards and work together, because it's going to be a very complex puzzle piece. There also, and I don't know this, and it's outside community school district 3, there may be space in some of the high school buildings that may be where you may want to look.
Yeah,
But remember, capacity in CSD 3, particularly within the community board of 7 founders, is really, really a premium. And I just want to talk about that, because I was one of the guys, I was the guy who abstained because I had the space question, because I also serve on one of the other boards that's involved with the district schools. Okay.
I'm not.
Let it go.
Okay?
Sure.
So, go ahead. So thanks, and just to clarify to you, Michelle, I mean, what we're doing here today is to support, if we vote, we're supporting to help them, go out and look for space and look for money, and those are the things that we need. Well, that's not what I would say, but that's another conversation for another day. So, let's take the vote.
Just call the question.
So, vote support for the resolution.
I apologize.
39. Any opposed? Opposed? Okay. Abstaining? Okay, 39-0-0.
Thank you.
Ruby, and I speak in favor of this resolution. In thinking about better, what could possibly get better? So one thing that came to me, and one thing that I've seen around the world, steel containers that keep rodents out, and trucks can be automated to come by and pick it up. Urge this great study. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Don Capelin. After living in the things that makes it livable is that there was some parking, not a lot, but there was some. Yes, I own a car. I use mass transit daily. We park on the street because garages cost a fortune. We visit Westchester for recreation and to see friends. Mass transit is not a viable option for these destinations. Before we consider taking away what limited parking we now have, know that car owners won't abandon their vehicles if parking is further restricted. They'll have to spend more time looking for a spot. I implore you, don't make a difficult situation even worse.
I'm a representative from John Gray, I can speak. Good evening, my name is Ron Fields. Supporters in the entire city with 7,000 in Community Ward 7 is filled by parked cars and congested traffic. A wildly unfair, with less than a quarter of Upper West Side residents owning a car, reforming outdated long-term private car storage will decrease the number of drivers searching for a parking spot, making our streets safer and our city greener. We don't ask the city for a place to store our shoes. Why should we expect a free place to keep our cars? Thank you.
Followed by Philip Becker, followed by Michael Minahan.
Hello, everybody. This is a resolution possible for the solutions. The main flaw, the biggest flaw of this, the resolution totally fails to include the recognition, interest, and there is no attempt to address the main issue. The dearth of parking opportunity is related to the needs and the desires of the residents and workers who service them to park a motor vehicle. You have to be blind. The first study of parking and what you should be asking for is to find out the needs, desires, and requirements of the people who currently use and park a motor vehicle in our neighborhood. And then, when no longer blind, congestion pricing, the crisis of congestion pricing for our neighborhood is overblown and mostly unknown. It is hard to bring and maintain. Few people will find parking on the west side an advantage. It will work for them for motor vehicles in our neighborhood. And if you truly fear after congestion pricing is in trouble.
I'm Philip Geffner, a resident of the Upper West Side. I am all for it. It's
premature to even float the idea of a ban on curbside parking before the results of such as I park on the street to go back and forth to my house in the country. I'm a writer. If street side parking is banned, I will have to use a garage, which is a lot of money. It feels like a penalty. With the volume of cars displaced from a ban on curbside parking, new garages will have to be built in this residential Manhattan. Thank you.
One is placards and demonstrations in the floor. So those who are holding up signs, I would implore you to please move to the back of the room so you're not blocking the view of that if you want to continue to hold your hand.
Good evening. My name is Michael Manahan. I live on West 75th Street. Kind of against children, it's very difficult. Yes, you can get access to ride, but you cannot predict when sanitation trucks at the same time in the morning as rush hour traffic and as the school buses from avenue to avenue. Within 10 after 11, the sweeper came by. But now you must stay in your car till 12:30, and it's cold out. I've had a strong stance against this study. Thank you.
I'd like to take a quick note to go in a row, and we're meant to be alternating, so we're now going to take 3 for the row. Rodriguez, followed by John Henry.
Hi, thank you. My name's Roy Gulick. I've lived on West 78th Street over 25 when I moved back to the city in 1993 because of safety issues to work. But it's not perfect out there. This morning on West cars and a bus all over the bike lane. I'm an academic as well. We vote for this study.
Okay, next up we have Joe
Rodriguez. I live on the Upper West Side. On my block alone. Not just that, there's a lot of, I live next to 5 schools, dangerous conditions by the stop sign. Action is necessary. I completely disagree, and I think that we can actually do stuff. We need to take action now, otherwise a kid will die.
Okay, next up is John Henry for Shaw.
Good evening. I strongly support the improved usage of curbside. I've been cycling for business and play. Thanks to curbside protected bike lanes, I feel safer than ever before. On whether it's Amsterdam Avenue or Columbus Avenue or Central Park South, Central Park West, south of 77th Street. And I strongly feel that parking, curb protected bike lanes should be extended north of 77th Street. And, but cyclists aren't the only beneficiary of protected bike lanes. With those lanes in place, pedestrians get a break too. Since concrete traffic islands installed, the cars lift out from the curb across streets, make it less daunting to cross broad thoroughfares like Columbus.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, we're going to resume alternating now. So now we have Oda Albategi, followed by Peter Fischoff, followed by Roger Barron.
Oda here. Why don't you pick another anti?
Roger Barron. We didn't give you much notice, but if you're here.
Roger Barron, step up.
Okay, I'll read another one. Fred Buckholz. Are you
Fred
here?
Buckholz, step up.
Thank you, Mr.
There we go.
All right.
I think so. Fred, I think that's Fred. He's coming.
Someone's
Yeah.
coming.
So this is Fred, right?
Hi, Fred Buckholz. I live on West 88th Street and have lived there for 40 years. I'm also a car owner and a bicyclist, and I think we need to do the study to find the best use of curbside and make it work for both. I think the protected bike lanes are very important. I commuted to work for 20 years on my bicycle. So let's do the study and let's make the best use of the curbsides for both cyclists and a few people with cars. Thank you.
Okay, then we have Peter Fischoff, followed by Richard Cacciato, followed by Madeline Bacchus.
Okay, I know you were looking for a con. That sounded like a pro to me. But I'm a pro.
Change your mind?
All right, good for you. He's changed his mind. So I'm Peter Frischaup. I've lived on the Upper West Side for 70 years, and I love it here, and I thank you for your service. I'm very much in favor of this study. The last census showed that only 27% of people in Manhattan own cars. There's some evidence that it's maybe as low as 15% now. Speaker Corey Johnson says that only 1.5 million out of 8.5 million people in New York actually own cars. So the streets change, the curb belongs to us, it's part of our public space, and we can think about how we might want to use it differently, whether it is to create a space for containerized trash rather than park a car, whether it's a space that could be daylighted to improve safety. Cooper Stock was killed on West End Avenue and 97th Street because there was poor visibility in part, and the Department of Transportation took away 4 parking spaces to open up that space. It was a good reallocation of space. We can do that again, and DOT should study how. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next we have Richard Cacciato, followed by Madeline Bacchus, followed by Michael Del Nastro.
Hi, my name is Richard Cacciato. I want to thank everybody here because I know it's a thankless job, so thank you very much. I actually signed up for against, but nothing is simple in life, and so I'm really not sure where I stand. I'm a cyclist. I use lights. I stop at red lights. Pedestrians compliment me for being courteous. I also have a car. I have a Fiat 500. It's a small car. And my issue is that I'm concerned that there is an inherent bias in this. I don't think that the direction should automatically be to remove parking places. I believe that to remove parking places is a regressive tax because those with a lot of money will pay the $600 or $700 to put their cars in the garage, but those who can't won't be able to. So the regressive tax issue is a big deal. And I agree with my predecessors who said we need to do market research and find out what people want and then align what they want with the city needs. Thank you very much.
Okay, up next we have Madeline Bacchus, followed by Michael Del Nastro, followed by Casey Bryce.
So I know that this is forbidden, but I'm not Madeline, but I saw she didn't get up, so I'm jumping up and letting you know I'm a resident of West 72nd Street. I'm a small business owner. I depend upon my car as a photographer to operate my business, and I can't afford a storefront. Everybody in this neighborhood is mad about empty storefronts. Everybody in this neighborhood is mad about the middle class being able to afford this neighborhood. And now you're going to take a middle class small business owner and make me pay $6,000 a year to park my car that I need for my job. So I find it to be a crazy idea. I think that there has to be some middle ground. I don't mind paying for some sort of placard, having a traffic zone like they do in London, in Rome, in Bologna. There's other ideas. But this all or nothing is absolutely unacceptable, and it's against middle class New Yorkers. And I live in Manhattan. I've lived in New York City my entire life. I moved to the Upper West Side because of the affordability and the ability to not pay $700 a month that I was paying on 58th Street.
Yeah.
So I really plead for you to explore some middle ground. My name is Melanie Westlock of West 72nd Street, and I am my
Melanie
Westlock. 2 S's for stupid idea.
Again, we appreciate public comment, but please also request that you respect your fellow community members who did sign up, and we still have probably at least 40 people to hear from, so please allow those who signed up and follow the process to speak. Also, as that was meant to be a turn for in support of the resolution, I'm going to call up the next speaker in line that was in support of the resolution, and then resume alternating. So is Casey Bryce there? Okay, Casey Bryce to be followed by Michael Del Nastro to be followed by Willow Stelzer.
Yeah, hi, briefly, I'm not in favor of banning parking. I am in favor of a study. Given the preponderance, though, of people who do not own or do not use cars, it is, to me, a question of fairness to at least examine some other options. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Michael Del Masro, followed by Willow Stelzer, followed by Howard Gold.
Hello, I've lived on the west side since 1973. I own a car, I park on the street. I need a car weekly or more to help my 88-year-old mother-in-law who lives way out on Long Island. Shopping, errands, doctor appointments, weekly or more. Lose my car, I leave my lifestyle. Traveling in the city, I use subways, buses, city bikes, no car, no congestion. The proposed committee study mentions congestion pricing, but its real agenda appears to be broader. It's more activist. It seems to be purely anti-car. Study the use of alternative curb space? That's like studying for the wrong test. I asked for an unbiased study, not this one, to assess congestion pricing. That's the issue at hand. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Willow Stelzer, followed by Howard Gold, followed by Andy Rosenthal.
Hi, I'm Willow Stelzer. I live on West 90th Street. I'll keep it super brief. I'm a mother raising a small child, and I really want her to grow up in a different kind of city with different priorities than a lot of free parking that is using a lot of valuable public space. There are a lot of great things that public space could be used for. And I would just like to highlight that I know there are a lot of people who showed up who, of course, don't want their free parking taken away. But I want to highlight just one number. There are less than 10,000 free parking spaces in our district, and there are more than 95,000 households. So please consider all of your residents.
Okay, next up we have Howard Gold, followed by Andy Rosenthal, followed by Linda Prime.
I've lived on the Upper West Side for 30 years. I've been a cyclist for 20 years. I've been a member of Transportation Alternatives. I participate in several of their century rides. I want to speak to one item here, which I think getting the emails from TA, and I also own a car, which I occasionally use to park around here when we have to go out of the city for things. I do want to say that I think there is a certain bias, as some of the people have said, and as the emails from TA shows, which is that cycling, protected zones and cycling is a panacea. I do have some numbers here. Actually, the number of people with cars in the city is 1.4 million. 22% of Manhattan households have it. The number of people who cycle regularly, more than once a year, is several times a month, is 800,000. The number of people who commute to work by cycling, according to the DOT, is 48,000 a day, and that hasn't risen in a few years. And my own experience riding around is that the protected bike lanes in this area are not used very much. They're often in very poor condition. So I think it all has to be a balance, and everything needs to be considered, but I don't think we should get rid of curbside parking to put in more protected bike lanes. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Andy Rosenthal, followed by Linda Prime, followed by Barbara Reese.
Hi, Andy Rosenthal. I've lived on the Upper West Side for 33 years now. I own a car. I keep it parked up at 210th Street because there isn't enough space, and other people should look up in other neighborhoods. Science is under attack in Washington. Probably as we sit here tonight, it's being attacked. Let's not have science come under attack on the Upper West Side at CB7. This is a study. That's all it is. It's not reaching a conclusion. It's a study. Let's vote for science and vote for the resolution.
Okay, next up is Linda Prime, followed by Barbara Rice, followed by Bill Weiss.
Hi, I'm Linda Prine. I'm a physician and live on the Upper West Side, and I'd like to just remind people about climate change and the impact that all these people driving around in their cars looking for parking spaces are having on our air quality. This is something we really need to think about, and it's urgent that we think about it. We could be replacing this public space with trees and bushes and flowers and park type area like they've done in a few places on Broadway, which is really much better for our air quality than cars driving around. And also, it's not just people who can't afford parking. There are plenty of people who pay their doormen, who pay other people in their building to move their cars from one side of the street to the other just to save them some money. It's not all the people are in hardship cases that need to park on the street.
for example, that was meant to be an against one based on what we read from the slide, those seem to be in favor of the study, if I heard it right. So we'd actually like to switch if possible and have Bill Weiss come up, then followed by Barbara Rice, then followed by Ben Shapiro.
I am Bill Weiss, I'm a West Side resident and car owner. I'm also a pedestrian that uses sidewalks and takes the subway. We all want our neighborhoods to be safe and congestion-free, but as a car owner, I feel a little bit under attack. I need it for work, I need it for personal reasons, but no one's asking about them. My car made it possible to visit my mother-in-law in a hospice every day for 2 weeks, along with other family members in Rockland County. It made it also possible to go on an affordable vacation with my family. I do not hear the same anger and cries directed at commercial vehicles delivering for Amazon or the Ubers that everyone uses. No one is mentioning the fact that everyone who orders online is contributing to the problem. And there was a New York Times article, I tell everybody to read this, that cited commercial vehicles are mostly responsible for the increase in pollution and congestion, not passenger vehicles. Less parking for people in the neighborhood, for people that work in the neighborhood, will also be an adverse effect. Nurses and doormen who leave their shifts at 11, 12, midnight, who live outside the area that are not served by public transportation, tell them. Do a study, do it unbiased, plain and simple. Effects before and after of congestion pricing, nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Barbara Rice, and then after that, I'd actually like to have Joel Goodman and then Ben Shapiro. So Barbara?
Yeah, I speak in support of the study, precisely because all of us come to this with our very own particular perspective, and I think it would help all of us to, and we also come from the perspective of what our personal needs and our habits are without necessarily even knowing what some of the creative, innovative solutions that might not be panaceas or perfect for everyone, but might offer solutions that are improvements overall for everyone. My own perspective, just to share it, because that's anecdotally important as anyone else's, is yes, I mostly commute to work by bike. I use mass transit. I also do need, like others, to drive occasionally to visit my elderly parents and so forth, but I made a conscious decision many, many years ago, even though I have a family that I have to lug here and there, to use rideshare services precisely because that, when I did the calculation, was actually going to be less expensive and less of a hassle than car ownership. So there are other solutions. I thank you very much and support the study.
Thank you. Next up will be Joel Goldman. Is Joel here? Joel? Okay, we'll take against. What about Deborah Goldman or Deborah Goldman? Okay, what about Alan? Single name, Alan.
There's only one.
After
There's not even
Alan,
one.
This is Alan?
Is
Yeah.
that Alan?
Okay.
Are you Alan?
Yeah. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. After Alan, we will have Ben Shapiro, followed by Jerry Krumouch.
I am Alan. I live on West 71st Street. I've been a resident of the Upper West Side for about 28 years, all different areas. So I just wanted to give a couple of comments. I think this study is very good, this survey I should say, and it highlights in 7 cities congestion pricing, residential parking, permit, etc. So I think a lot of things that we're going to see, life on the Upper West Side, is going to be very, very different after congestion pricing comes in 2021 and probably for the next couple of years. Excuse me. Running up here. But in the meantime, I have to do my livelihood too. I do restoration of brownstones. So, like it or not, I have to haul around hundreds of pounds of stuff. Not every day, but almost every day. And so the brownstones are sometimes in Manhattan, sometimes in Brooklyn. I just can't do that by subway.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Ben Shapiro, followed by Jerry Krumouch, apologies, followed by Ryan Smith.
Hi, I'm Ben Shapiro. I'll just see to anybody who's for the resolution.
Thank you for respecting time. That was right. Yeah.
That was
That
Jerry,
was
right?
Ben, it was Ben.
That was Ben.
Yeah,
Okay, so next up is Jerry, followed by Ryan Smith, followed by Jeremy Kennedy.
Hi, I'm Jerry Camouche. I grew up in New York, lived in the Upper West Side a very long time. And I just wanted to make the point that this is not something I think that's been driven by any kind of lunatic fringe. It's not an issue I ever even thought about until fairly recently. I'd never realized that there was a time in New York when parking wasn't a God-given right. And growing up in New York, I want to kind of emphasize that I grew up with a great appreciation for parked cars. They were very useful in designating first and third base during stickball games. And Friday night on Fordham Road in the Bronx, they provided sitting or leaning spots for thousands of teenagers. So I don't have a bias toward cars, but I think we should study the issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and again, we're going by how the current remarks, so next up is Ryan Smith, followed by Jeremy Kennedy, followed by Kathleen Curcio.
So my name is Ryan Smith. Thank you for having me here to speak. I live across the park on the Upper East Side, and I don't spend as much time over here, but I know that on the East Side, and probably much like over on the, here on the West Side, we have a lot of people competing all the time for the curbside space on our streets. And so I think that starting to explore the options for how to deal with that, how to manage that in the most orderly way possible, is something that's very much needed, and I'm encouraged as someone, again, who doesn't live in this neighborhood, but knows that there are cameras and a lot of people watching tonight, but hopefully this will be the start of a very good trend where all throughout Manhattan we start asking these questions. And again, just the fact that I'll reiterate, like many people have said, that it's just asking the question. And then when the results come back and this board takes up which of DOT's proposed solutions they'd like to go with, I look forward to seeing you all here again in an even bigger, even more fun meeting.
Perfect timing. Okay, next up we have Jeremy Kennedy, followed by Kathleen Curcio, and we're also going to start putting in some of the two cards that are of unknown persuasion. So after Kathleen Curcio will be Nancy Lange.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Kennedy. I'm Upper West Side resident, car user, cyclist, subway user, bus user. But I'm very concerned that the results of this proposed study will result in unnecessary financial burden to users of street parking. I recently saw a private study done that indicated 80,000 residents left New York City in 2019. And these people leave because financially they have to, it's not because they want to. So I suggested a people problem with delivery trucks and double parking, etc., that maybe we need to endorse a study that it helps us better enforce the rules of the road. In fact, I'm also a pedestrian, and I've never felt less safe than with the introduction of bike lanes in the neighborhood. But I use them too, and I sometimes say so. Anyway, I think that any study that's going to be conducted will be result in recommendations by consultants. And these consultants don't necessarily have the same stakeholder, are not the same stakeholders as residents, so I'm against this resolution.
Thank you. Next up we have Kathleen Curcio, followed by Nancy Lange, followed by Deborah Robb.
I'm Kathy Curcio, and I'm a resident of the Upper West Side who owns a car. I don't own a car because it's convenient. It's not convenient driving around looking for a parking space, alternate side parking. It's not convenient because as the spaces disappear, as they've been disappearing recently in the last few years at such a quick rate, it's a necessity in my case and probably in a lot of other people's case. I too have a mother, a 94-year-old mother with cancer who lives in Long Island. The transportation to get out to Long Island involves hours if I do it without a car. Many of the towns in Long Island do not have trains anywhere near them. The same is true in places in New Jersey and certainly even in the outer boroughs. I use city transportation. I use the subways probably 5-6 times a week. But twice a week, in addition to my obligations to my family, to my mother, I have to travel to Westchester for work.
So consider, this isn't a luxury. For many of us, it's a necessity.
Nancy, followed by Deborah Robb, followed by Maurice Floriana.
Hi, my name is Nancy Lang. I live on West 107th Street. Oh, sorry. I have a car out of necessity, just like the lady who just spoke. And I have a very similar situation with an aging parent who's not well. My family suffered a loss 10 years ago, and when my dad passed away, they had to come all the way an hour and a half out from Long Island into the city to come pick me up. So when my mother got ill, she gave me her car, so that in that situation, I would be able to leave the city in a moment's notice. I'm also a special education teacher and doing early intervention, and a lot of my parents have cars because taking autistic children on a bus or on a train is just a traumatic incident for the child. I want more information. I want a study done. I'm requesting 2 studies, actually. I want an initial study done, and then after the congestion pricing goes in, an additional study to see the comparison. And I'm also a little concerned about your wording here as far as the greatest good for the people. It sounds really biased.
Okay, next up is Deborah Robb, to be followed by Maurice Floriana, to be followed by School Love.
Hi, good evening, Deborah Robb. I am in favor of the study for the reasons that have been given for the last hour. I just want to focus on the daylighting aspect, which I would hope everyone in this room is presumably a pedestrian at some point in the day. And the simple act, as was mentioned earlier, of removing 4 parking spaces from an intersection can and does save lives, I believe. And I urge you to study it and necessary implement it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Maurice Floriano, to be followed by School Love, to be followed by Tack Rose.
Do we have Maurice?
What's humming? Maurice, is Maurice in the room? Okay. What about Jody Sperling? We're trying to stick with the alternating. Is Jody Sperling in the room?
She left.
She left, okay. What about Erwin Figueroa?
He's already
Already, okay. What about Ellen Azorin? Is Ellen in the room?
I think somebody you just called is actually here.
Erwin took his spot, so.
Oh, okay. So come on up. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Disclaimer, I am not Erwin. Erwin spoke during my spot. Cecil Brooks, nice to meet all of you. Thank you for hosting this conversation. So to be up front, I am a Bronx resident, a Bronx kid who fell in love with the Upper West Side. And I grew up going to concerts in Lincoln Square, skateboarding to Blaze before it closed, and I decorated my home with Pottery Barn. I'm even considering purchasing property here within the next 5 years. But why would I move here from the greatest borough on the planet? Well, I love the ease of movement and the family safety, but both mobility and safety could be threatened by a lack of flexible space. And I feel that with New York being the 3rd most congested city on the planet, tied with Moscow last year and only beat by Los Angeles, I feel that we should start asking the question of what could be done with spaces, as well as what creative solutions we can find. Also, from the business owner perspective, double parking is a huge issue to be focused on for both mobility, for residents that need their own spaces, and for people crossing the streets. So consider those impacts, and thank you. Hopefully I'll move here someday, or have the possibility to.
Okay, thank you. I want to make a note, again, we have prioritized hearing from folks who we have never heard from before. And on the side against the resolution, we are starting to move into speakers we have heard from before, but we want to get them to the floor. We'll keep alternating on the side for the resolution. There's still going to be some new speakers.
About 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. Okay, so Tag, Gross.
Hello, everybody. This is actually a lot simpler than you would think. If we just look at the resolution, the entire impetus of this resolution was to study congestion pricing. There was an outcry from owners and from citizens and neighbors that this was going to have a big impact. So why are we talking about curbside? Let's examine what congestion pricing's impact is. That's the question. It's not about garbage corrals. It's not about parklets. It's not about any of that. It's about the impact of congestion pricing on our neighborhood. That's the first step. We are for a study of that. And many of you received an alternative resolution that specifically calls for that. Let's establish a baseline in our neighborhood right now, and 6 months into congestion pricing, let's study the effect, if any. Then let's address residential parking and other uses and daylighting, bike lines, and everything else. Vote no on this, and let's move to the alternate resolution tonight and vote yes on that.
Then to be followed by Clara Boyd, then Jody Sperling, if you're.
Good evening, my name is Sproul Love. I'm in favor of the study. I can't think of a good reason why not to look at the options. To your earlier point, let's look at the options. I live right down the street at 83rd and Broadway. I'm a father, and I just want to make one comment about safety. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, and I do not feel safe riding bikes with them or crossing streets with them with the lights off of protected bike lanes.
Right.
Thank you. Next up is Clara Boyd, followed by Jody Sperling, if here, followed by Christine Palma.
Hi, my name is Clara Boyd. I'm a stroke neurologist. I reverse commute. I also have complex regional pain syndrome that makes it hard for me to walk and stand. I'm in pain right now, actually. I can just comment on what is physically written and what has been passed out to us all. So this, as written, is a question about congestion pricing. To study the impact of it, this hasn't happened yet, and we have no information on it. But yet, it says, be it resolved, and you're bringing up curbside parking. That's just a bias. When you conduct a bias study, and a study that has a clear conflict of interest, sometimes harm is the result of that. So I would say that what is written there, and I'm only remarking upon the writing, that's very obviously biased.
Right. She's not here.
No, it's in the record. Okay, and Ellen Azorin, is Ellen here?
Ellen?
No. Okay. What about, yep, we're getting some more names.
Going
What
through the
about
names, there's
Avi
lots of people.
Hoffman?
Not the Yiddish theater actor.
Avi will be followed by Christine Palma, and then
I
followed
apologize
by
for not being
Ruben.
the Yiddish theater actor. I live on 80th Street, between Amsterdam and Broadway. My street cross-section consists of about 2 feet of sidewalk that's filled with garbage and rats, then like 30 feet of space that's only usable by people who drive, and then 2 more feet of sidewalk filled with rats and garbage. I reject the notion that 30 feet is not part of my public space. That street belongs to everybody who lives on the Upper West Side, and I think it's crazy that we don't, especially in light of climate change and people worrying about air quality, that we don't take the opportunity to study better uses of what we can do with that 30 feet of street that's most of our public space, most of it. And look, one of the options for the study will likely be, we'll take that free parking on all of our streets and charge like $1 an hour. And you know, if we do that, a lot of people, more people will be able to find parking because they'll be charging for it. And if you give something away for free, people fight over it. But if you start charging for it, like with every other commercial good, then you'll be able to find it a lot easier. So at least think about your neighbors.
Next up is Christine Palma. Christine here, to be followed by Richard Rubin, to be followed by Deborah Kanan.
Hi there, I'm Christine Palmer.
Good.
Alright, hi there, I'm Christine Palma. And the first thing that hit me as a Puerto Rican in here, just looking around, it's nuts that just because somebody's a minority, that would just blow off their needs. The health insurance reimbursement is half in New York City than New Jersey. So if I want to be able to afford to live in the Upper West Side, I need to commute to New Jersey. There's no congestion. I don't ever hit traffic driving to Bayonne or to Jersey City. And today when I drove home, again, I was in no traffic and I got a parking spot in 5 minutes. I'm not sure what this study is going to accomplish. And I have a car and 4 bicycles. I'm a competitive cyclist. To think cycling is the solution is insane. Only 1/3 of the women in New York City are cyclists. And I'm on the bike lane working out. There's no women. And to think that, that's a viable solution is insane. And even this time of year, nobody's on the bike lane. So you need transportation alternatives for the whole year.
Okay, next up is Richard Rubin, to be followed by Deborah Kanan, to be followed by Lisa Orman.
Hi, I'm Richard Rubin. I live on West 94th Street in Broadway. I am a car owner. I have a 2003 Toyota. Recently, I got rid of my 1991 Toyota. I don't really have any good reason to have a car, but I do. And I don't think that's my right. I simply think I'm lucky to have a car. I park it up in Harlem, which I kind of feel bad about parking in another neighborhood. I rode a bike today in a protected lane, and I'm really glad it was there. Made me feel safe, and as a father, I'm really excited about that for anybody's children. I think street side parking should stay though, but as zone parking and metered parking along Broadway and other places, private bike lanes should also be made zone parking. I think a bigger issue with parking, trying to find a spot, has always been movies. When movies and the TVs are being made, TV shows are being made. I have a dog. Welcome by Riverside Park. You can't find a spot, and those TV studios and movie studios contribute nothing to the neighborhood. Nothing. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Deborah Kanan, to be followed by Lisa Orman, to be followed by Charles Gross.
I think that's going to be it.
I'm Deb Kamen. I'm a retired researcher in mental health, born and raised to love mass transit. I don't like to drive, but for much of my life, a car has been a necessity, and parking in a private garage, an unthinkable luxury. I commuted by car to my last full-time job because breakdowns were frequent on my public transit route. And years ago, I was a musician using a car to transport my sound system to shows. In my 42 years here, it's never been easy to park, but these days it's harder than ever. We agree that conditions on the street are awful. We also have some goals in common: to improve mass transit, increase safety, and decrease emissions. We have differences too, but congestion pricing is coming sooner than we can resolve them. I'm for a study, not this one, but one that's quick and neat. Take baseline measurements now on traffic conditions and measure them again 6 months after congestion pricing starts. Then we'll really know whether and how congestion pricing is hurting us.
Okay, next up we have Lisa Orman, to be followed by Charles Gross. Hi, Lisa Orman, Streetopia, Upper West Side. I want to get one thing clear. We are not talking about banning parking. But I think we can all agree that free parking is anything but free. There are opportunity costs to devoting that much public space to one use. Instead, we could have busways, daylighting, loading zones, taxi stands, bike corrals. We could have more open space for neighbors to meet and talk, things that benefit everyone in the community. That's what we lose when we hold on to the status quo. And for parkers, I can't imagine that you want to spend your time thinking about your car, or sitting in your car, or moving your car. That sounds incredibly stressful and time intensive. In fact, New Yorkers spend an average of 107 hours per year searching for parking. The status quo is charging you a steep price. It's just measured in time. It's the 21st century. Cities are working to get greener, more equitable, and safer. Let's not put our heads in the sand. Let's proactively plan for the future. Let's vote yes on this study. Okay, next up is Charles Gross.
Although the city is a world unto itself, there is a world outside the city that neither the A train nor a city bike can take you to. And I say this as a lifelong cyclist who has done 1,600 miles on a city bike alone. I cannot use the subway to visit my father's rehab center in Rockland. I cannot take my mother-in-law shopping by putting her wheelchair on the back of a city bike. People say, I don't use parking spaces, why should I support them? I don't use city public schools, why should I support them? The answer should be obvious. Any study we do should include an investigation of the need for free street parking on the Upper West Side and consider the possibility of ways to increase such parking should this need be established. Finally, on your way home, count the number of cars you see on the streets versus the number of bicycles, and then tell me who the special interest we are accommodating is. I'm Charles Gross, and I approve this speech.
So that's all the time we have. We actually have, I'm sorry, there are going to be folks who are not going to be called. And I'm sorry for that, but I promised you 50 minutes and I gave you 57. So we're now going to do what we promised to do, which is to read into the record and ask the secretaries to record the names of those. Let's do all those who oppose and give names that signed up to speak, and then those who were for the resolution and give the names to who signed up to speak but we couldn't call on. Thank you.
Again, thank you everyone, and I do want to note that although we were not able to hear from everyone, we were able to hear from all of the new speakers who have never spoken before at a meeting, and all of these cards I'm about to read have either previously provided comment in the full board or committee meeting, or I read their cards earlier, but they weren't in the room when I read them. So the pile of cards that we're hoping to speak against the resolution includes Scott Rademachen, Mindy Haskell, Natalie Hilson, Glenn Grassi, Paul Schreiber, along with Eleanor Radzivikoven, House Derry, Roger Barron, Deborah Goldman, and Joel Goldman. So I've read them, but we're also passing the cards to our secretary to record them. And then the pile of cards that people that we're hoping to speak for the resolution include Leonard P. Daniels. Meant to go against.
I wanted to speak. I think it's biased because I'm conservative.
Okay. Again, we stuck with the procedures we made available prior to the meeting, and appreciate your support for that. Okay. All right, I'm going to continue reading the names that were here. So the other names that were in for the resolution file were David Vassar, Ira Gershenhorn, Kevin Fagar, Chelsea Ramada, Josh Pinkerton, Jody Sperling, and Ellen Azorin. So again, thank you, and we'll pass to Mark before we proceed.
Okay, so thank you all for that. I missed something there. I'm not sure what just happened, but by and large, I have to say a big thank you to all of our community members for dialogue that our community board, this is precisely the kind of conversation that I think we need to have tonight. And if anything goes forward, let's continue that spirit. Now, we're going to turn to board discussion. I'll remind my colleagues of the text of the resolution is before you and also on the screen. And I would encourage us, since we already had robust discussion about this at a previous full board meeting, that I would encourage folks to be succinct and to help us. We have 6 more resolutions to go tonight, 5 more besides this one. We need to take votes and we need to be out of here by about 9:50. So let's, and there's plenty more to be had. So let's be succinct and keep going, and now I'll shut up and let the chair run.
Why don't we just go, is this on? Okay, why don't we go around the room and just have everyone have a chance, and then Megan and I will make the final comments if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so
Can we start on this side since we always start?
Of course.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
As this resolution stands, I cannot be in favor for it because I really believe that there is one thing to study the implementation of congestion pricing on our community, both prior and after. Then the rest of that may become a conversation. But when it says on our piece of paper, study on curbside usage, that's not the representation of what we have been asking for and why this resolution has gone back and back and back. I think that a study looking at what congestion pricing and what's currently going on in our community is needed before we start thinking about how we can or can't or how we use our curbside.
I think we need to identify this, pardon my voice, resolution for what it is. To characterize it as a study, I think, is inaccurate. It is, in fact, the stalking horse to further the interests of doing away with free parking. And if anybody doubts that, all they need to do is think about what the testimony is tonight, think about what the media attention has been, think about the quotes in the newspapers and the TV interviews. The view of this board, for better or for worse, has been characterized as in favor of eliminating free parking. The first line of the resolution says we're studying parking and curb usage. And with respect to some of the people who have put forth possible usages of curb space, there are only essentially two uses of curb space. One is parking, the other is bicycle lanes. To encourage a study by the Department of Transportation is a monumental waste of time. First of all, it's unlikely that they'll even do it. Secondly, this city, the mayor's Department of Transportation, and the Speaker of the City Council, and the majority of the City Council already have a policy that's set in stone. They're not going to change it. City's committed to hundreds more miles of protected bike lanes. They've committed to expanding space for city bike. And I've been told that the city is about to come out with what they call a smart truck management plan, which will also involve eliminating more parking spaces. I suggest that if our committee and then the full board is really interested in doing a meaningful study on all of the aspects of curb usage and parking and bicycle lanes, that you need to ask specific questions. You dealt with congestion pricing, fine. You dealt with residential parking permits, which, by the way, our mayor has said publicly that he's totally against. He's not going to charge his neighbors to park in their neighborhood. That's a quote. And it disturbs me, frankly, that we don't ask a lot of other questions involving the usage of the curb space and the bike lanes. For example, if the city continues to allocate more space to city bike, which it intends to do, and there are even some city council members who are proposing subsidizing city bike, do we look into what kind of fair return the city is getting from granting them that space? They get a nominal fee. The city contract provides for profit sharing. The profit sharing is determined by the city bike auditors, and surprise, surprise, there hasn't been a profit since they started. And what about liability questions? If you own a car in the state of New York, in the city of New York, you have to register it. You have to carry liability insurance. If you cause an injury, you have to have insurance. If people, with the increase in bike usage, excuse me?
It's not about resolution, about city.
There's no debate here. It's all we're speaking.
Yeah, I would only interrupt you, Ken. Why, if we're studying the usage of curb space, which involves increased usage of bike lanes. Should bike riders have to register their bikes? Should they have liability? Should in the state of New York, if you own an automobile, you have vicarious liability. If anybody operating your automobile causes an injury, as the owner, you're responsible. Should city bike be responsible? Does anybody know if they're responsible? It disturbs me, by the way, when certain people and certain organizations rail about free parking spaces, that the city shouldn't be giving free parking to people. Well, it's not free. We all pay taxes in the city of New York. Some of us pay property taxes. Some of us pay property taxes within their rent. We pay sales taxes. We pay income taxes. As one gentleman said, and I'm in the same position, I don't have school-age children anymore, but I pay for the schools. I don't have children who use the playgrounds. I pay for the playgrounds. I think it's insulting to say that parking somehow is for the privileged and it's free. That's the job of a municipality. We pay taxes. The municipality's job is to provide services. I've never heard anyone say that cyclists should somehow pay for protected bike lanes, which are solely for their benefit. And one final comment on statistics. This business that 27% of the people only own cars. Those 20% of the people who own cars, that's the named owner in a given household. Virtually every one of those households has a spouse or a partner or children. If you take the number of people who count on those cars for their needs and obligations, it's probably half the people in the city. It's time to stop demonizing car owners. We have 50,000 approximately car owners in our district. With family members, that's more than a majority of the people in our district. It's time we gave, I believe we should give due consideration to the rights and needs of all of our community members, and I urge you no vote.
Now would be a good time to remind my colleagues on the board that if someone else has said what you intend to say, that just to say, I agree with Jay, or I agree with Howard, or I agree with whoever, rather than, because I'm looking at the clock now and we have to be out of here. So if I could encourage my colleagues to do that, I would be very grateful.
I nominate Jay for head of the transportation board.
I was going to say that concludes the Jay Adolph portion of tonight's meeting. So I think a study is warranted, but I think the study should be the current conditions on our streets. Who's parking there? Are people from out of our district parking there because it's convenient and then jumping on the train? And then I think there should be a post 6 months after the start of congestion pricing study to see how those parking arrangements have changed. I think that is a really worthwhile endeavor, and I would support such an effort.
I agree. It appears to me the pace of change in the city has created a ton of emotion. We're still looking to understand what's taking place on the streets as it relates to parking and transportation, and that the issue on the table is specifically congestion pricing before and after. And I would support a study on that.
I would also support a study specifically on congestion and the impact of that, the non-impact of it right now and the impact of it at some point later. And just to keep my points brief, the reasons are what Amy highlighted. But I do want to say that for us as a community board, it is not for us to decide whether having a car is a symbol of privilege or not. I think we've heard from enough people tonight and on other nights as well who need cars for their jobs inside our neighborhood and also outside the city, for the middle class, for people who have special needs children, elderly parents, etc., etc. So I really totally disagree with that notion.
I also believe in diversity of everything, including transportation options for all of us, whether they are public or private, or ride sharing, or whatever you want to call them. Somebody also raised the point of commercial vehicles. I don't really see them discussed at all, whereas a lot of the congestion and double parking issues are created by the UPS trucks and the USPS trucks and Fresh Direct that uses our streets as glorified warehouses. But no, there's no mention about any of that in here.
Sure there is.
It's
in the first paragraph.
Finally, with all due respect, to any members of transportation alternatives, I actually do feel that a lot of the meeting and past discussions have been run with a lot of influence from them. I don't know if others agree with me or not, but that's a very clear bias I see.
I'll just be brief. I agree with Jay.
I just wanted to follow up on an email exchange Howard and I had, but I asked to remove the word paid residential parking and just made it residential parking because let's not assume it'll be paid. And to Jay's point on taxing, we are the highest tax people in America, so raise your hand. And we have the highest city tax in the world, so I feel very overtaxed, and I think I should have the right to park a car if I own a car. But
first, I want to thank the people who spoke in the community. I thought the tone was helpful, worthwhile, and personally, I learned a great deal. It's not that I haven't heard some of these arguments, but we are the community board, and I was enlightened by the combination of need, feeling, attempting to be rational, look at the other side, and that was very important tonight. It's a relief as compared to what has been occurring for months and months, sadly, for me at least, organized perhaps by a couple of interest groups who may be powerful and may be good, but are rather demagogic when they come to the community board. So, I now move to, I agree very much with Andrew and a couple of the other people. I think there could be and should be a study. We could ask for one in our neighborhood about congestion pricing and really go on record and say, DOT, do that here. But the second and most important thing, instead of this kind of resolution with the flaming words for some of curbside parking and so on and other things that make for rhetoric, we should list, because that's our job. Let's say 3 or 5, not more than that, of the major problems that we probably all could agree with now that we need attention about. And among them, I think that I've heard from different people, the truck deliveries and the great change that is really impacting us enormously. Secondly, certain aspects, lack of enforcement, and some other things that I won't take the time on, having to do with the practice and lack of enforcement of bicyclists within existing bike lanes, and there are 1 or 2 others. But I think there are 3 or 4 that are appropriate because they affect all of us. Let's not get into the hysteria. Let's be constructive and make it happen. 1, congestion pricing. 2, 3 or 4 of the items that we all know are affecting all of us and have made a change here in this neighborhood, and we should study and insist that we work with DOT to do it.
I agree with Ethel, and I especially agree with Amy and articulate and exactly what you said. I just want to point out 2 things. One, that I was turned off by the name of the resolution, and in a sense, it inflamed people again. Okay, it's for study of curbside usage and so many other things here. So that was a mistake. Okay. Second, it says that what should be used for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Well, someone said there are twice as many parkers than bicyclists, but I don't want to prefer either one. I care about old people. I don't have a car, I don't have a bike, I walk and I use public transportation. And free parking was talked about? The only place you have free parking is on the Monopoly board. Okay, and if there's something on it, you win. So I'm for a study before and after congestion pricing, and some of the things that we're all concerned about it was constructive. And last, Department of Transportation hasn't acted on the crosswalk on 106th Street in 2.5 years, which is a simple thing and affects hundreds of senior citizens, many who are mobility impaired. But I thought maybe if I I'm not against protected light lines, if we put that in the resolution, they would have done it the next day. The Department of Transportation is going to do what it wants. It has its own bias. The city has its own bias. We need an answer to our problems.
Well, once again, we see democracy in action, and I'm very, very grateful for everybody who came out on both sides. And even in the gray area, which I find myself in a little bit. I'm very, very pleased that we had listened to you. When I say we, I mean the collective board and the committee, because this resolution went back to committee and has been abbreviated, changed in response to testimony. So I feel very good about that. And I feel much better about this resolution as it stands because I'm not afraid of studying anything, and I've said it publicly and I'll say it again. If the study is done, which it may not be done, but if it is done, and it turns out to be biased, I'll call it out. And if it's a great study, I think we'll have a lot to learn from it. I'm grateful that we've made the change. I think it's benign. I think that more information is always better. You take what you like and leave the rest, and then we'll have more opportunities for debate, depending on when and if that study comes. But I'd like to hear from my fellow board members.
Yeah, it's 9:18. I just want to keep track of the time. We're on a clock here.
So there's a lot of tough jobs, but thank you for everyone listening or paying attention to this side, to the sign. I don't cycle that much. I'm more of a runner. As much as I wish there was protected running lanes. And there's a lot of different uses and ways that people want to use the street. At the end of the day, I think members of the board, no matter what side they are on, have been trying to listen to all of you folks who have come out here and give a great different perspectives on the issue. I think we can go back and forth and we can pick apart every single word, but at the end of the day, I think the essence here is to recognize that the way we are using our streets is changing, it's changing rapidly, and we need to start thinking, how are our streets going to be used in the future? Again, we could change a word here or there, which I know the committee has already done many times. I think we need information, we need a study, we need something to help inform us to take the next step. If we don't have data and we're not data driven, we're just going to be having circular conversations. So again, while we could always mince the words, we really need to focus on taking action. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Andrew. I just want to be brief. I want to say I agree with both Andrews and Doug very much. I just want to point out it's great to hear so many people here. I noticed one group of people is very absent tonight, and it was youth, which make up 20% of Manhattan. And when we think about this issue, I want to think about it in the sense that we all face issues, be it with cars, be it with bikes, be it with congestion in the streets. This is an issue that affects everyone, and the purpose of this board and the purpose of the study is that we want to collectively search for answers to those solutions. And that shouldn't be something that we're divided on. And it should be something, we're not just looking for solutions in the next 5 years, we're looking for solutions in the next 50 years. And ideally, I want to see a resolution that everyone can get behind, because everyone should be behind it.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick, but that was a lot. I know at the beginning Howard encouraged everyone to read the resolution. It seems like maybe people still haven't read the resolution. Nowhere in the resolution does it say we're calling for an end to street parking. That's not in the resolution. Nowhere in the resolution does it mention bikes at all. This is not a resolution about bikes or bike lanes. It calls for a study before and after congestion pricing, which is what I heard a few people saying they wanted. That's explicitly what this resolution calls for. Let's see, what else? Oh, the commercial vehicles. That's in the first paragraph. Again, we were noticing a lot of different problems on the streets. The congestion, the double parking due to the commercial vehicles because of increased e-commerce deliveries. So that's one of the things we were concerned about and want to see studied. One potential solution to that is commercial loading zones, which requires analyzing how we use our curbside. So to the point that there's only 2 uses of the curbs, parking or bike lanes, that's just not true at all. There are so many innovative potential uses to the curbs, and that's what we want to explore. We don't know the answer, but we think that the city should be looking into it. I just wanted to point out too, the next resolution we're going to be addressing is improving the M11 bus route, and it's a resolution requesting a study by the DOT. So if you're against this study by the DOT, I guess you're going to be against that one too. I mean, this is what we do as a community board, is we ask the DOT to study things. So we're asking them to study broadly how we use our curbside. In the next one, we're asking them to study the M11 bus route and how it might be improved. And by the way, it might be improved by doing things like getting rid of some parking. So, these are all interrelated things. I also wanted to the point about bias, Andrew mentioned it earlier. The mayor does have a bias. He is in favor of free on-street parking. He has said that clearly. So if anything, the bias is in favor of maintaining the status quo, not the other way around. Again, to the words of the resolution, we're focused on the needs and concerns of the residents and businesses of our community, all of you. That's what this resolution calls for. So to say that we are biased in some way, I actually find really offensive. And to say that we are shills for transportation alternatives, I also find incredibly offensive. I worked very, very hard on this resolution. No, people were implying it over and over again, and we worked very hard on this resolution as a committee without outside influence. And, the fact that they send out emails about it, we can't control. I don't control what TA sends out an email about. Those are not the words of the committee. The words of the committee are what's in this resolution in front of you, and I encourage you to vote for it.
So, my good friend Sarah, who just spoke, and I have a disagreement. I thought that this was my resolution that I proposed close to a year ago. And I'm a car owner. I do the alternate side of the street dance. And quite often I drive a half hour or more looking for a spot because I don't want to pay for a $600 spot in the neighborhood. I have the floor. So my thought was, this is crazy that we're allocating this resource to the people who drive around long enough looking for parking, myself included, because it makes sense for me on a financial level to do this. But on a societal level, it doesn't make sense that we're allocating spots like this. So I propose, we should look into residential parking, especially as congestion pricing is coming, and especially as more people might be driving and wanting to park in our neighborhood without having to pay the congestion pricing fee. On that note, all this driving I'm doing, I'm very conscious that today is February 4th, we're midwinter. It's supposed to be the coldest week of the year, and today it's 60 degrees in New York City, 20 degrees above normal. I saw flowers blooming in tree pits today in the city. Cars account for 1/5 of all U.S. emissions, and again, I'm guilty of this, but cars emit 24 pounds of global warming gases for every gallon of gas that we drive through. And like I say, we're allocating spots to those people who are driving the most. We're also allocating spots to someone who mentioned it today, said that in winter he keeps his car idling for a half hour every time he moves his car because it's cold and he's running the heat. In summer he's running his car for a half hour every time he moves the car, and that's 4 times a week to cool down because it's hot. And my thought is there must be a better way. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's resident parking. Maybe resident parking can make it easier for all the car owners who spoke tonight to find parking without driving, as the study says, 107 hours a year on average for New York drivers looking for parking. Maybe we can ensure that out-of-towners won't try parking in our neighborhood to avoid congestion pricing. Maybe we can make things easier for the business owners and workers, for people with family obligations, for others who have that necessity for a car. without making them drive on average 107 hours a year. We've heard a lot of misinformation tonight. Number one, that this is a resolution calling for the elimination of cars from New York City. That is not the case. Number two, that it's calling for a ban on curbside parking. Again, not the case. People are saying the real agenda for this appears to be broader. We're voting on the words in this resolution. This vote is not about TA's emails. It's also not about emails from the opponents of this. We're just voting on the words in the resolution. And we shouldn't let misinformation keep us from getting more information. I urge everyone to read the resolution. We are calling for a study. I don't think that this is a body that's afraid of a study that might include witnesses and documents. Also, I've heard a lot of worrying about specific wording of the resolution, and I think those people who are further trying to wordsmith this, it's been close to a year that we've been going over the wording of this document. Our resolutions, number one, are non-binding. Number two, DOT is free to do whatever they want with the study. They're not going to examine word by word and decide, oh wow, this word says unchanged. We need to adjust the study in that way. This is a general signal to DOT that we think that there might be a better way that's better for all of the community, and we should look into it. We should move forward with a call for a study. We want to get a baseline before congestion pricing sets in. The other thing I want to mention really quickly, Mark, is we can't let alternative resolutions derail this. We've been working on this for a year. It's gone through committee. We just went back. We discussed it in committee in December, how to vote on it. This has been wordsmithed to death. We need to just vote. It's a yes or no vote, and we're calling for a study, nothing more.
But we're not going to get to that yes or no vote if we run out of time. So let's.
Okay. Really quickly, I voted for this in committee. I agree with what Andrew Albert said and what Doug said. I have to say, I have listened to a lot of what people who were opposed to this brought up tonight, and I think your concerns are very valid. I don't think what's written is perfect, but I think we need to do something in terms of getting the study done before congestion pricing goes into effect.
We'll speak at the end.
First of all, I just want to say the congestion pricing enabling legislation actually includes a study within 18 months. But there's a lot more going on the Upper West Side, and that's the reason for this resolution. We have, as we've heard, we have dysfunctional streets, we have rampant double parking, we have people circling the block. All this resolution does, and we have, by the way, on average 7 crashes a day just in this district. So all this resolution does is explore what our options are in terms of managing the curb, something that hasn't changed in 70 years. Why not just take a look at it? We're asking DOT to look at what other cities have done around in the U.S. and around the world, and what could be the harm in that. We've just witnessed the spectacle at the federal level of a great legislative body resolutely closing its ears to any new information. I think we, Community Board 7, are better than that.
Okay, number one, with or without the mandate in the congestion pricing legislation that it be studied, I think that our DOT is going to study it anyway in some manner, both before and certainly after, and I think we should not at all be hung up on the idea of a separate study or a separate resolution just on congestion pricing. Number two, I don't think the wording of this is ideal either. It's radically better from the last iterations. I would have written it somewhat differently, unless somebody else persuades me, who speaks after me, persuades me to do otherwise. I intend to hold my nose with regard to the language of it, but to vote for it. I want to make a different point about it, however, that nobody thus far here on the board has spoken about, and I think that Reed Ruby and Lisa Orman really pointed to what to me is the essence of this, which is that our streets and our sidewalks together form, from building line on one side to building line on the other side, form our public space. We own it. And we have wide streets that have wider street areas and sometimes wider sidewalks. We have narrower streets with narrower sidewalks. But one way or another, from building line to building line, is what is our curbside space. And I think of this, and I think we should properly think of it as both sides of the curb. So what's possible is we might find in 5 or 10 years that parking is exactly like it is now, that congestion parking has not been a big deal, but we might find that we have garbage corrals that take a minor piece. We might find that we have bicycle corrals or that we have commercial parking corrals. To me, the reason we want to look at this is to look at the entirety of our public street and sidewalk space.
Just mind, we have like 5 more resolutions after this, so please. I'm going to bet with dear that whatever you want to say has already been said, so please.
And that's what I was going to say. In order not to be redundant, I will allow my vote to reflect my position.
Okay, I'll just say that I endorse what Larry and Ken, just the points that they made. And it's not very likely that the city DOT has not studied this exhaustively. And that we should look at whatever their reports are and compare it with other cities. New York metropolitan area is not in a vacuum of zones, so that there's solutions that are probably well afoot in other places that we could borrow. But we don't know. We're not asking for the reports that DOT has. We're working in a vacuum. And I think that I'd like the committee to get hands on some of these reports.
First, I wanted to apologize to the Transportation Committee because they did reach out to me for my comments on this before the meeting, and I did not have time to get back to them. I do think this is better, but I still feel that there are certain assumptions embedded in the language which do curve the proposal. I'm in favor of studies all the time, but I think that what we really are focusing on, a study on what our public realm should be between the 2 curbs is one thing. I think that's too large for us today. What we really have for today is that our community currently suffers from traffic congestion, rampant double parking, and unsafe conditions. We're concerned that congestion pricing will make this worse. We call for an immediate study of the anticipated impacts of congestion pricing, and we call for increased enforcement of both vehicles and electric bikes that are causing unsafe conditions. I think there's too much in here that unfortunately makes me not able to vote for it as it stands, but I'm very much in favor of doing this study. I'm very concerned that congestion pricing is going to have even more of a negative impact north of 59th Street in our community board when it goes into effect.
Thank you. I agree with Jeanette's assessment and recommendations. I also agree with Jay, Andrew Albert, Natasha, and William. I appreciate Shelley's explanation of what free parking is. I think there's some biased words in this resolution, notably paragraph 1. You don't have to say rampant double parking, you all know. I don't like that word rampant. I don't like significant cruising because these are qualities that you're telling DOT. These are conclusions and substantial number of injuries. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 or 7,000. It's always substantial. That's embedded in number of injuries. Just saying injuries, I think, covers it. I want to ask, you took out the word paid in front of residential parking permits?
Yeah,
in the
that was a
last paragraph?
friendly amendment, and that's fine.
Okay, thank you. I think I said what I need to say.
All right. Not perfect, big improvement. I'll support it.
First of all, I wanted to point out I was at this transportation committee, and the committee vote was actually 9-0-0-0, and the board members who were present are not reflected here. It was 3-3-0-0, and I'd like that to be added to this. I agree with a lot of what many of my colleagues said, particularly Jay, Amy, Natasha. It was like you read my notes. Jeanette, Andrew, Albert. I don't think this resolution is friendly and supportive of the entire community. I mean, I think that it's Without going into detail, because I know we have no time, I also am very opposed to a lot of the wording. I think that the alternate resolution that was passed around about congestion pricing is not bad, and I could support something on congestion pricing for sure.
No.
That's it.
You're up.
No, were you guys?
Yeah, you're gonna speak.
Okay, this resolution doesn't do anything. It calls for information. I just want to be clear. Look at the words there. And whether you think, and a lot has been said tonight about the intent. I just want to say we adopted a resolution several months ago, and then we redid the resolution, and we considered it at committee, and then we brought the resolution to the full board, and they brought it back to committee. We had input from literally hundreds of people in the community. We had a forum of experts on curbside usage, and we tried our best. And is it perfect? No. You're not. Many people around the table have said this is not perfect. This is maybe not even that great. I agree. What this is trying to do is, as I said, I've been co-chair of the Transportation Committee for over 3 years, and we look at the problems we currently have. I do believe more are coming in the future with congestion pricing, but right now we have problems, and we would like to improve the situation. We as a committee, whatever you think our own personal views are, there is nothing here that implies we're going to take away cars or parking or anything. It doesn't call for removal of parking spots. It doesn't call for setting up garages. On the other hand, it doesn't call for setting up protected bike lanes. We just want to know what the city that has a monopoly on the control of the streets can do to help us protect it, and then we will come back to you with that information. Nothing will be done as a result of this resolution.
Howard, I'm going to have to move this along, so Meg, real quick, please. I'm sorry to be this way.
I'll reiterate a lot of calling to the, pointing out the text of the resolution, asking for information. While the DOT will do what it wants, and we, even if we want to recommend some of the things that the study may or may not say, they'll still do what we want. We do think, I agree with Elizabeth of it's not perfect. It's gone through an iterative process. It's not perfect. But there is an interest for us to get moving and requesting this information and proactively asking DOT to provide us with this. And the closer, continued wordsmithing over months and months moves it closer and closer to when the beginning of congestion pricing in January 2021 does come, and they need time to collect information before that. I had a few other points, but I think, I'll cede it, most of which
I'm sorry, we're just running out of time here. Apologize. So let's call the question. Secretaries, please.
Oh. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All those abstaining? 1, 2, 3. 3. So
Anybody refusing?
the resolution carries.
So what's the vote?
22, 12, 3. The resolution carries.
Next resolution, please. This time you got it real fast, guys.
The next resolution is another transportation committee resolution. I will ask if you are
22, 12,
save any side conversations for outside of the room, since as you've all heard, we have a number of other things to get to. So the next resolution from transportation is regarding improving the M11 bus routes. While the Transportation Committee has gotten a lot more attention in recent months related to other studies, the committee is also continuously looking to improve public transit and safety conditions on the streets throughout the district. We've already heard some folks and guests comment tonight that the M11 bus route is very busy. It's a very important one throughout CB7's district. There has been ridership decreases. It's an unreliable line. It's very slow. There's a lot of congestion feeding out from the Lincoln Tunnel traffic area. The committee crafted this resolution to request the NYC DOT, in conjunction with MTA, study this route for possible methods to improve performance. The committee passed the resolution unanimously. There were non-committee board members in attendance, who supported it as well. We also, during the committee meeting, we're aware that CB4 is also reaching out to DOT and the MTA upon this. Yesterday, State Assembly member Linda Rosenthal wrote a letter to DOT and MTA about needing to see improvements in this and wanting to work with CB7 and CB4. And we were informed today by the Manhattan Borough President's Office that they have also reached out and are in correspondence with that. So we look forward to working on these things together with these parties, and in the interim think it is worthwhile for CB7 to pass this resolution in support of that, and then, you know, continue these discussions with those parties.
All question?
All those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 35.
Opposed?
Any
Abstaining?
Okay,
Ineligible?
35.
I assume no.
35000.
Great.
All right, so moving along, I'm Elizabeth Caputo from the Parks and Environment Committee, Clary, my co-chair, Howard, and Meg. We worked together on a resolution dealing with, and what we discussed at our January joint item was having a respectful and thoughtful conversation about travel through Central Park, and how to make it safer. There was a discussion about all sorts of people and vehicles and bicycles going both through the park and through the transverses. We discussed it at length. We came up with a resolution that we feel hopefully represents something that is an urgent need for short-term action, given largely in light of what had happened recently with the recent death of Dr. Daniel Cameraman, who many of you are familiar with, who was killed while crossing Central Park en route by bicycle to his office several months ago. What we did was we created a series of 5 requests that we hope that the sort of primary 4 city agencies that are going to be involved in this, or that are involved in this, which is DOT, Parks Department, the Central Park Precinct, and the NYPD. We asked them, Central Park Conservancy, and the NYPD. That is considered a task force to us, and we've asked them to come back no later than March with a series of recommendations that we will then explore further. So that's the resolution that's on the table. Everyone should have gotten a sheet of paper, not what's written in the original resolution that you see in the original, I guess, list of stuff is not what we are voting on. We're voting on this more truncated resolution. So are there any questions? Well, we have a number of public speakers. I think in the interest of time, unless you have something that you urgently need to say about this, we will move forward. But I can start reading. Peter Frischoff is the first. Peter, again, in the interest of time, if you could keep it brief, it would be great. And then Dan is next.
Thank you. I don't see a mic, but sorry. Strongly in favor. In 2009, the Parks Department installed some crosstown bike lanes to keep bicyclists, give them a safe alternative to the transverses, which are absolutely deadly, where cars have been shown to be going 40 miles an hour, where there's not even room for bicycles, which is where Dr. Cameron was killed. If there was a safe, good route through the park, and there's an exit to the 96th Street, it's actually on 95th Street, crosstown bike path, which if that were extended to 5th Avenue, Dr. Cameron would have had a safe route. So that should be opened immediately as a shared route for bicycles and pedestrians. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Let's give it right to Dan.
Dan, and then Tad Gross and Lisa Orman.
Thank you. This resolution basically asks to address 2 issues: the danger for cycling through the transverses, and 2, a solution to allow cyclists to cross Central Park safely and legally. It makes sense. The danger. The transverses are truly dangerous. It's a fool's errand to even think of cycling and traffic through them. And to cycle through on a day when there's ice or snow on the ground is likely to be a deadly choice. If this board and the cycling community care at all about safety, then ask to close the transverses to cycles immediately. There should never be another death of a cyclist in the transverses of Central Park. do that tonight. On crossing Central Park, there is already a safe way to cross Central Park. From Fifth Avenue to Central Park, it's about 3 blocks, maybe a little bit more. All of us often walk 3 or more blocks to get to a subway or to a bus for transportation. And most of us who have a motor vehicle walk 3 or more blocks or more to get to the place where our vehicle is parked, street or garage. I walk across Central Park on foot, and I've walked my bicycle across the park. It's easy and it's safe, and it doesn't take longer than it often takes me to walk to the subway or catch a bus and wait for it. I would represent that most anyone riding a bicycle is capable of walking across Central Park. It doesn't take that long, and when you get across, you have your cycle with you, and you continue right on your way. When I walk, I may have to walk further or wait to catch a bus or subway to get where I'm going. I cannot see why this board would seek to pave over parkland, to create a bike highway across the park, to turn a short walk into a speed path that other park users will have to contend with. Close the transverses to bicycles. Never allow a bicycle highway across the park.
Yep.
We're not asking for a bicycle highway across the park. We are asking for safe passage across the park. This task force would just pull together a bunch of really smart people who know what they're doing, and they can come up with suggestions for ways to get bikers across the park. It is more than 3 blocks.
If I could just reiterate that it's not just bicyclists, it's people, it's everyone. We want to make sure that's very clear.
Dr. Cameraman was my child's pediatrician, so I'm very aware of what happened. The transverse is actually the only safe way to walk across the park at night. If you've ever been a poor person, maybe you worked at Mount Sinai, spent your last 50 cents on a slice of pizza and had to give that up and not take the bus, you don't walk through the park, you walk through the transverse. Bikes can go through the park. Don't deny pedestrians the right to walk through safely. And the other thing is, in general, I get out of my apartment when I don't ride my bike to work. I have to walk from my apartment to the subway, take the subway, get out of the subway, and walk to my office. Bikers can get off their bikes for a couple of blocks here and there and walk.
Reed Ruby, I think is the final.
Thank you. I ride my bike across the transverses year-round. I have studded snow tires when it snows. A lot of people do. It's an exciting but very dangerous path. So I urge the board to ask DOT to provide safe passage for pedestrians and bicycles and cars on the transverses and for pedestrians and bikes through Central Park. Thank you.
So I think Ned has a
quick comment, a quick clarification. I think the main ask, the first 2 asks within the resolution are about potential short-term or more immediate fixes. There are some existing shared paths across the park that people on wheeled devices, bicycles, or otherwise can use. They don't fully connect to the avenues on either side, but there are some existing paths, such as one that's parallel to the 96th Street Traverse, that are virtually unknown. People on wheeled devices don't know they can use them. There isn't clear signage, they're not maintained. So part of it is just improving existing passages that already exist, although imperfect. And then the secondary main piece is asking for the formation of this task force to really look at what are deeper and longer term potential fixes, including any possible changes related to the transverses. We generally agreed they're terrifying, but it's really asking for some short-term visible things that we already know, and then really asking experts for future thoughts.
Exactly. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a quick request for a friendly amendment. In the first part of it, clearer signage where wheeled vehicles can and can't go to Cross Park. That's number 1.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Secondly, stricter enforcement of motor vehicles speeding on the transverses with your speed signs and stricter enforcement of cyclist compliance with traffic laws.
So that's the transverses. That deals with the transverses.
That's not a
Just call it.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 34. Any opposed? Everyone abstaining? Okay, 34,000.
The fastest explanation of Medicaid ever.
This ought to take an hour. This deserves an hour. I'll just tell you quickly, you can read it all yourself, and I think you should. There are 6 million people in New York State who rely on Medicaid. And right now, 45, in the past 9 years, 45 nursing homes that are not-for-profit have been closed in New York State. And it's going to get worse. And it's likely to affect our 2 nursing homes, Amsterdam Nursing Home and the New Jewish Home. The Medicaid reimbursement from 2011, there's an MRT, Medicaid Redesign Team, the governor appoints. They did a poor job, and in all these years there haven't been increases in the reimbursement rate, and that's why there's huge debts on the part. The governor has started to appoint a team now. The team does not include any providers, any people with expertise in home long-term health care, and the people who are affected. We are asking him to do that. We're asking for proper reimbursement. We're asking for our elected officials, particularly in the state, to take action, and the governor. That's in essence what this is. But I think it's for now that we ought to do this, and we ought to send it to Mark Levine. We should get something passed at the city council, or even use this, and that we should pressure our state senate and state assembly people to pressure the governor. Thank you.
So this is obviously an incredibly important thing that we're going to cram in at the end, but I want the vote to take place before the budget gets passed in Albany. So if we could call the question.
Which is, April 1st is a new life, and so there's less than 2 months.
Okay, those in favor? Oh, 32. Any opposed? That was everybody abstaining. Okay, 32,000. Dropping like flies.
Okay, we have on number 8, 132 West 80th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. This is for a small rooftop addition with no visibility from any public way. We decided that, other pictures? Yeah, thank you. Just doing this, thank you. Yeah. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Turn off the other one.
There is the bill, no, that's the other one.
All right, so you know what,
We can do that.
Yeah, do that one.
That one first. Okay. ELC number 9, 164 West 81st. It's an application to do several things. You'll see them listed in the agenda, and then more details if you want them in the resolution. They are restoring a front stoop and the entrance to where it was back in the day, and they are replacing a front areaway. And then 2 things in addition. They are doing, and that's a very 3-story rear addition, and the details there are in the resolution, and there is a small rooftop HVAC addition as well. There's the rear, and then there you can see the plan for the rear addition, smaller on the ground level.
Can we call the question?
Okay, those in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Are you not in favor? 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
29, wait, 30. Those opposed? And abstaining? 1. Okay. Did you vote yet? Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe I missed you. Okay.
That was number 9.
That was number 9.
Okay.
And number 8, as I was saying, is a small rooftop addition. You want me to use the mic? Okay, sound.
Small rooftop addition at 132 West 80th Street with no visibility from any public way using materials that our more learned team members decided materials were appropriate. This is what I found interesting about this, among other things, this is a conversion from 8 apartments, the building's empty, vacant, conversion from 8 apartments to 1. Yeah, that's
No,
one.
not this
Oh,
one.
that's the
Not
other
this
one,
one.
sorry,
Not
I
this
take
one.
that back.
Studio apartment.
Yeah, it's a studio apartment that they want to build, add space on top. The chimneys will be will be a little bit higher, as you can see in the picture, than they are currently to be up to code. And that's pretty much that. Anybody have any questions?
What's the dotted line?
The dotted line is the building next door, what's really there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we call the question?
All those in favor?
31, 32. And those opposed? Yeah, I got Roberta. And those abstaining? 1. So 3201.
Thank you. Last one on your agenda is something called the Transportation Mobility Review Board. Honest to God, that's what it's called. It is the people who will decide what the congestion pricing fee should be and how it should work. There's a proposal at Borough Board, that board of the 12 community board chairs at the Borough President's office, that have proposed that we should have, originally the proposal is that we should have one Manhattan representative on that board, and my recommendation is that there should be 2, one inside the zone and one outside the zone, and if we have to expand the board to do it, we should be represented, because the interests of those in the zone and out of the zone may not be the same. That is the resolution before you. It allows me, on your behalf, to vote for such a resolution at full board, so I appreciate a vote yes. Question has been called.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Roberta, no? 32. Those opposed? And abstaining? Wait, were you opposed, sorry? Oh, no, yeah, okay, sorry. Are you abstaining? Oh, right, sorry. Gotcha. Yep, okay.
I will accept the motion for adjournment.